Okay, well, good morning, everyone. This is the April 16th regular monthly meeting of your Board of Directors. The first item of business is to see if there are any members who wish to exercise their right to speak on agenda items.
I do have some raised hands.
As there are none, we'll move on to approving the minutes of the board meeting of March 19th. In the board book, beginning on page 1.
Gentlemen, the one thing I'd like to mention is Bruce McAndrews is already planning ahead with our insurance agent to see if there's any incremental premium increases. So he's operating well in advance. That includes any improvements to the renovation of the golf course. He's not anticipating any at this particular point in time, but he's asked the insurance agent.
Is that something that needs to be included in the minutes,
No,
or is that an aside update?
That's an aside. That's an aside.
So page 1, page 2. Under COVID-19 update, it says additionally there are no positive cases to report for staff. I think that needs to be amended to say there was one positive case in the staff.
Or we could say no new positive cases, but I think we're reporting on current, so that's probably more accurate.
Any other changes to page 2? Page 3. Page 4.
Bill, just a wait.
Which page?
I'm not sure. I lost it. Is this it? Nope. I'm sorry. My form page. Oh.
Okay. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7.
So just a note. When I did mention about the President's Council, there was a request from the council to get the information on renters. I don't have a problem if you don't change the minutes because I think it's going to come up later in this meeting about that. But I would note that they are very interested in receiving the rental.
And I believe that was mentioned at last
meeting.
It
was,
right.
Happy, but it's going to be mentioned today, so I don't think we need to change it.
Well, I mean, the minutes should be accurate. It should accurately reflect what occurred there, and that's not in there. We should probably put it in.
We can put the one sentence in that simply says the President's Council has requested and will implement renters reports to those individual boards. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Linda, you got that? Okay. And finally, page 8. No other corrections. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve them.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We'll move on to the general manager's report. No.
Good morning, everybody. So first and foremost, with regard to COVID-19 update, we do not have any new reported cases to our office from members or staff as of the last couple of weeks. Also, with regard to the second shot, the community event that we had set up with the Department of Health, several of our members and staff were able to get the first shot on March 29th. As it stands right now, the second shot rollout, which most people did get a card that says April 26th, each person who signed up online is to receive an email from Eventbrite, and it's through that email that they will sign up for their second dose. So any member or staff member who participated in the March 29th first dose vaccination event will receive an individual email that they will be able to sign up for their second dose. They will not be able to just show up at the vaccination site without doing the sign up through Eventbrite. We did post that information on the website the other day as well. So it's there, but just to make sure that everybody knows that and that it's memorialized, that is the way forward with the Department of Health. We will send that as part of our email to as well, so members realize that they will be in an individual email. And unfortunately, they don't give us a specific time or day when they're gonna send that second email. They just say approximately 1 week in advance. So approximately 1 week in advance will be this Monday, April 19th, so sometime in that time frame. With regard to our golf and social events, we are trying to do things as normal as we possibly can, as we have all season long, with reduced capacities, with all of our events primarily being held outdoors. We do have our end of the season party this weekend, this Saturday, actually tomorrow, and there's 125 members signed up. Our trivia has been running between 80 to 100 players each week, and we'll run trivia through May, as long as we have the players to do so. We've had a lot of questions about our COVID protocols because Collier County and the city of Naples have dropped their mask mandates. However, as we've said before, our plan is to keep the exact same protocols in place for the foreseeable future. And when we do make those changes, we will certainly notify the membership in advance. One of the events that we're planning right now, as far as just an add-on event, is April 29th, which is a Thursday. We're going to have a groundbreaking ceremony for the golf course. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through, because one of the requirements is I need to have some funds approved by the board to be able to have that event. But the idea is that we're going to do kind of a photo op and a groundbreaking event with some of John's staff, with the Green Committee, others that are involved. And then that day, we're gonna do a par 3 event for anybody who'd like to play golf, and then follow that up with hot dogs, hamburgers, type of a cookout, something casual, something fun, some sort of celebration for the members. And one of the requests was that for the committee and the committees who have been involved was to provide them with a Foxfire hat for the photo op. So we've ordered the hats to provide them to those members. My estimate on the cost of the entire event, which is based on our 35th anniversary event where we had a similar menu, is going to be somewhere in the range of $7,000. And that will supply the hot dogs, the hamburgers, soft drinks, water, any alcoholic beverages people would be responsible for themselves, and then the cost of the hats for the various committee members and board.
That include that giant scissors that you have?
Yeah, the big scissors, right.
Silver shovel, of course.
I'm sorry?
The silver shovel.
Silver shovel.
Yeah, that's right, the gold-plated shovel, exactly. But when we had our 35th anniversary party, we did serve 600 hot dogs and 600 hamburgers.
That's amazing. How many people were there?
There was.
There weren't 600 though.
Huge crowd.
By the time the whole day went, because we had over 200 just for the dinner, I think that night.
Oh,
I
my.
remember it Saturday, it was an all-day event.
Yeah.
So, but what we did, when we did serve the hot dogs and hamburgers, we served 600 each.
I think
And I
some
think-
people had more than.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah. So,
Really?
and, but that's something that we would like to do. And the staff is putting together the details. And again, I think it would be a great opportunity for the members to celebrate the groundbreaking of the golf course. And then once we get into the amenities, we would have, similar events along the way. But I think it's been a very long 13 months for everybody, whether you're a Foxfire member, staff member, or anybody else in the world. And I think having some sort of a celebration to celebrate success would be certainly appropriate for the membership at Foxfire. So,
There was some early talk about doing a memorial for Pam at the same time. Could we integrate that into that, or would you like to keep that as a separate event?
I think what we could, the more I thought about it, I think what we should do is certainly have a mention of it during that time.
Yeah.
You know, dedication type of a thing, but there's been some other ideas flowing through on what would be appropriate. So I think, I think we should definitely recognize it on that day, especially with so many people. And, but I think, again, it might be something a little bit more that we can do, you know.
Yeah, understood. That's more
Yes.
focused on her rather than
Yeah.
the golf. That makes sense. Would you like a motion?
Yeah, we need a motion.
I make a motion that we authorize the expenditure of, is 7,000 going to cover it?
Let's say 7,000 for now.
All right,
Yeah.
a motion of expenditure not to exceed $7,000 to pay for food and other amenities for the groundbreaking ceremony on April 29th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, done.
Okay. So, next, one of the other things I will mention too, before I move on to some of the next points on the agenda. With reciprocal lists, we have generated a short season reciprocal list that has been available, and we are sending some members to reciprocals because we planned that we would have some bump outs. I don't know this time of the year that the reciprocals can accommodate all the players that want to go, but the pro shop staff has made those efforts, and members are enjoying some reciprocals this time of the year. The vast majority of our reciprocal list will open up on May 1st. As mentioned before, Stephen had several clubs that are honoring reduced rates, clubs that we've honored reduced rates for in the past. And so with the advent of reciprocal season, our normal closing days will start on Thursdays in May. And I think that's going to be entirely appropriate this year because there's a lot of staging that has to happen with some of the equipment for the other golf courses. So I just wanted to confirm with the board that our plan is to start our closures the first Thursday in May for a variety of reasons, but primarily with the golf course renovation, there's a lot of equipment that's got to be moved, and having golfers on the golf course is going to make it very difficult to do that. Because we have to prepare the new nine for sprigging, and we don't want to move heavy equipment over new sprigs later in May or in June. So that's the plan. And as I said, the fact that reciprocal play is available, golfers who want to go away will have that opportunity on Thursdays. With regard to where we stand right now with our controller duties, obviously a lot has changed in the past 4 weeks. Early on, when Pam was first hospitalized, I had started doing a short-term search for someone who could perform controller duties on a part-time basis, with obviously the hope that Pam would return to work at some point in time. And I had gotten some leads early in March on 2 firms where they do come in and substitute and perform the duties that you requested to ask with regard to from a controller standpoint. As things progressed, and then ultimately with Pam's passing, reached out to a company, Schnitzel Hospitality Group, Geraldine Schnitzel, who is a seasoned veteran. She works with several clubs in the area, has substituted on an interim basis for clubs Windstar, Hideaway Beach. Geraldine is somebody that I know Pam has known for 30 years. I was quite familiar with Geraldine, so when I did reach out to RSM to get names on who we could hire temporarily, and in this case, she will work remotely. She was one of the 2 names that was recommended. So we have engaged Geraldine. We're getting her all the access that she needs so she can do all of the financial reports that Pam would generally produce. Halsey and Layla are producing all of the support and all the backup material that Geraldine requires. And this is, as I've said, this has been going on for a few weeks now anyways. And next week will be really the first time where Geraldine's really focused on our account, 2 or 3 days of that week, because again, she works for several other clubs. But the top priorities are going to be to do our final financials for February, financials for March, and then our quarterly financial. In addition to that, we've been working with her on some of the other issues with regard to sales tax and 941 forms and other items as well. So there are some things that we've just had to kind of get into the priority line on what had to be done first. Halsey and I are monitoring all of the account transactions, the general ledger, to make sure all the funds are where they have to be, all the day-to-day, any closings that have been happening at Foxfire. Layla is handling all of that, which she has done in the past. However, for us in a calendar year, we generally have about 50 closings, so about a closing a week. And in the last 6 weeks, I think she's probably averaged 3 to 5 closings every single week. So it's just been a really, really, really busy time. And from the standpoint of the support that Layla and Halsey provided Pam for all that time, they have really stepped up to the plate and done a fantastic job in providing all of that information to me and to Geraldine, the finance committee, and so on and so forth. So I'm very comfortable where we are right now, but again, the real key for us is just making sure that we line up our priorities and get things done in the fashion that we have to have them done, so that we can operate, on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. And so far, that's been the case. In addition to that, we've asked Mr. Moore, Kathy Connors, and Jim Matheny from the Finance Committee to be part of a search committee for a new controller. They've already drafted a job description. That job description is going to be forwarded to Phil Newman at RSM and Gary Eskin, our HR consultant, and then also to Geraldine, because we can use HFTP, which is Hospitality Financial Technology Professionals. We can use the Club Managers Association website, and then obviously any close contacts that RSM has to start our search. In addition to that, we plan to interview an executive search team that we may utilize to fill this position. And the goal is to fill the position by July 1st. That's the goal at this point in time, and then we'll see how that plays out.
Can I interject a question about the job description?
Yeah.
Does the job description include anything regarding IT?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, it does.
and electronic voting.
Yeah.
Donald, is it significantly different than the job description that we currently have for that position?
It's, we use it, the advertising, we use that as the basis.
Because I had one here, I had the
Yeah.
old one,
Yeah.
or the previous one.
Yeah, so we use that as a basis and developed something a little more up to speed. And then once we finalize it, we'll certainly distribute it.
I was gonna say, if you want, just drop me a note once you
Yeah.
put it in final form, which should be today or Monday.
Right.
I'll get it out to you.
Yeah.
Sure, whatever.
But, so in any case, one of the things that Roger and I did have a phone interview with Phil Newman a few weeks ago regarding the search. And some of the things that he had recommended was, first and foremost, that whomever we hire has got to have a very strong accounting background. That has got to be the number one criteria, that they're very strong from the accounting with their accounting background. The other thing he had said was that, initiating conversations with an executive search team would make a lot of sense, because right now there are several clubs that are currently trying to fill their controller position. So as we've discussed for the last several months, the labor market being what it has been for all of the other positions, and the difficulty that we have with the unemployment situation right now, a lot of people have elected to stay home as opposed to come to work in a restaurant or a golf shop, but or a golf course. But with the controller position, obviously, it would be a fine job for anybody interested. And we want to make sure we fill that position with the best candidate, and we find a long-term person to take Pam's place.
Before you go on, I'd just like to extend the thanks of the board to Helsi and Layla, to the members of the finance committee, especially Lynn Anderson and Helen Wesley, and to Roger, our treasurer, as well as Timothy, Jim Moore, and Kathy Connors for their involvement in helping us negotiate this very difficult situation. I think it's we have an incredible pool of talent here who stepped up in this case, and we're very fortunate. So thank you to all of them.
Okay. Next on my list here is a golf course project. Dr. Panetta and I discussed this the other day, and so I'll just do the golf course and then the project update and move the construction committee update. With regard to the golf course, we did start trenching on the new 9 and installing main line and lateral pipes this week. The work has been very fluid. They are working about 55 hours a week, which is fantastic, and they plan to do so as long as they can. They've actually added some staff to our job for the next week or 10 days, in addition to the staff that we're providing, that GT will be paying for. But overall, that project is where we want it to be right now. There's a lot of details and a lot of communication that has occurred for the past over a year with GT Irrigation and with some of the other providers that we'll be using for these golf course renovations and upgrades. And every contractor or subcontractor that we're working with has been here when they've been asked to be here. They've made all the meetings that we've asked them to do. They've held the proper safety meetings for all the technical aspects of fusing the pipe, then also splicing all the wires that are related to the irrigation system. In addition, because we are working underground, all of the utilities, both our own utilities and public utilities, have to be located. And we do have some major power lines and water lines running through this property. And we've been in contact with our insurance company, just to make sure that from our standpoint, that we're covering all the bases. One of the things that we put into place is that all the utilities that are being marked, we are taking a picture of those markings in advance of digging. Anytime we're working around utilities, they're hand digging first. So far, things have gone very well. Everybody's worked extremely well together. We have our first on-site meeting scheduled with Hills Forest Smith next week, and that's to review the construction plans for the golf course, 9 red, 9 blue, the short game practice area, then the 1 blue fairway, and the 9 blue tee box. That will be our initial meeting with them for this summer, to make sure all of the other contractors that we pull in understand what the scope is and how things will roll out. But as of right now, whether it's MGR, who's gonna build the bulkhead, Universal Underground, who's going to move all of the dirt, James Harbuck, who's gonna do all of our finish shaping, MJS Grassing, who's gonna provide all the grass, FIS, who's gonna provide all the materials for the drainage and the irrigation. Every one of those contractors or outfits have been working with us on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And right now, everything is really where it has to be to keep this project moving forward on time and in the budget that we had provided early on. If there are any significant deviations or any conflicts that we're unaware of, which we know when we dig, there are going to be conflicts. There's going to be rock in places we don't expect to see rock. There's going to be drains in places we don't expect to see drains. Those will be identified, and if there's any significant deviations in the scope or cost or anything like that, we will certainly report that back, to the board and to the membership. But as of right now, with regard to the golf course, I would say that we are on time and we are on budget. With regard to the amenity master plan.
Before we get to the amenities, can I just
Sure,
ask one thing? I have this unnatural curiosity to see what's going on out there. And I know we're not supposed to be walking out there, but are we having flyovers with the drones so that we can?
Well, that is,
Stay tuned.
stay tuned.
Stay tuned, okay.
Stay tuned.
So we're gonna do that on a regular basis, so voyeurs like me can actually watch what's going on out there. Good.
And just so everyone knows that the communications committee is working very closely with the golf course maintenance staff, especially Jeremy, who is doing all the videoing. And we will show examples of that today.
And where's that? That's gonna be on our website?
It will be on our website.
Okay.
These videos you see today should be up as soon as Kathy can get them up. And it's on the master plan tab. If you go to the website, there's a under community government, on the member central, there's a master plan tab. If you click on that, it'll say golf and amenities. Click on golf. You go to the bottom, right now there are videos there. So I don't know if you've seen those,
No,
and that was herbicide application. So you can do that. You can go there and see what's on there now, and we will add the videos we showed today. We will add those additional videos to the website.
Great.
And that was the goal and objective, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but that was the goal and objective of the communication committee, because we felt it was really, really important for our members to see what was going on when they're not here.
Right.
Because this is part of the whole, what they voted for, and they're
Exactly.
entitled to see what's going on.
It's
And
actually
so-
kind of an exciting thing to watch.
It's very
too.
exciting, and so Jeremy has a regular schedule that he's gonna take pictures and a drone video, which was the drone that was purchased that we approved a couple of meetings ago. And he's really doing a great job. He's really having fun doing it, and you can tell just by watching it. So you'll enjoy it a little bit later on when Kathy presents it.
Thank you.
I'll add just a couple.
Sure.
First of all, I'm looking around the room. I'm one of the few people that's butts up to some of the work. And it's very impressive to see them come down the fairway with everything and the hand digging and all that good stuff and all those little flags. We have more colored flags in front of my house by 3 sold. It's great. Two other questions,
Sure.
and it's a question that the members ask me because they say, well, when's the sprig's gonna go in? And I say, what I'm explaining to them is you can't put a sprig in until you do the fairways, you can't do the fairways until you pull the pipe in.
That's right.
So if anybody is concerned, sprigs will happen, but first of all, look at pipes, as I see on 3 Silver, going down fairways on top of dirt. Because
Yeah.
I'm assuming we're gonna put those in as we chew up the ground and make it level. So,
Right,
okay.
right.
I just wanna make sure
No, that's good. I can expand on that to help her. So what's happening right now is there's basically 2 crews from the irrigation. There's one crew that's laying all the main line down the middle of the fairways. And there's another crew that's working on all the laterals. So those are all the ones that will go side to side. And what will happen is once they go through and they get, we'll say 3 silver, 4 silver, 5 silver, that loop complete, then what we'll do is we'll go back in with some machinery and smooth everything out. We'll get the irrigation running on some of those holes so that we can at least water the greens. And that's all we'll water at first. Once the entire irrigation system is in place, then we'll pull the MJS in and we'll do all the sods and all of the sprays. So the new sod and the new sprays will most likely go down sometime right around the middle of May. So that's when that application will happen. But for right now, once we do get water running on as the holes come online, it's gonna really be to water the greens. In the meantime, and this is a question that Communications Committee asked me, we can talk about this as part of our next website update, is what are we doing to keep the greens alive now? And there's a couple of techniques. First and foremost, we're letting the greens grow to 1/4 of an inch, which is substantial. So that growth will protect them when they're not being watered, you know, whether it's rainwater or irrigation water. But in addition to that, we have 500-gallon water tanks that you see our tractors drag around. And so we have crews out there hand watering those greens and hand watering all those hot spots. So between growing the grass to a much higher height than it would generally be grown at, and then using the 500-gallon tank to water, that's how we're keeping the greens alive now. But as far as the sod and the sprays, that will most likely take place right around that May 17th, right around that May 17th area.
Yeah, I saw them watering this morning.
Yeah.
The other question it's the questions I get asked.
Sure.
And we talk about what was $460,000 worth of enhancements, which I'm correct when I say that that's not for 2022 now, that's a 2021 project, which I would suggest, because some members don't know, that they should realize that we're going to do everything
Yes.
in this year, and whatever announcements, whatever we put together, I would suggest we highlight that, because it's going to be a significant change and an improvement and a surprise to someone to come back in, let's say, November.
Right.
My final question with that is, and you and I have talked about it, and other people have talked about it, some of that is a combined function, would have been done listed.
Sure.
There may be a savings in there. Are we expecting one?
Yeah, we had already calculated the savings then when we came up with the total number. So one of the things is we already had reduced it, but with the total budget that's been approved, for example, what we definitely won't do this year will be what happens at One Red and the One Red putting green, only because that's going to be contingent on that fitness center. So that's one of the areas. We most likely will improve the driving range tee this year, but we won't do that completely over. So those are the smaller sections that we probably won't do, only because it has to do with underground and other things like that that will impact the fitness center. But bringing and doing this work now, for example, all the earth work, we're probably saving $20,000 just in mobilization fees. And I'll be able to get that more detailed as I get the rental equipment pricing. Because what we're doing is we're hiring people direct and we're managing it. So we're not paying all the extra overhead and for an on-site superintendent and so on and so forth. But just in mobilization fees alone, we're going to save at least $20,000 alone before there's any other savings. So yes, this project, the way it's laid out and the way we're implementing it is going to be, it's already significantly less than what it would have been if we hired a third party. But there are others.
I guess my thought is April 27th, that Thursday. It's 29th, sorry, 29th.
Yeah.
It would be nice during that to say, and by the way,
Sure.
because of this, you should know that.
Yeah.
You understand my
Absolutely.
point.
For sure. Absolutely.
Thank you.
No question. The, with regard to the amenities, so where we are right now is the first application, site plan application to the county had been submitted. We've already received the first round of comments, which was great. It's actually sooner than we anticipated. Those comments, all but one, have already been addressed and are ready for resubmittal. And the reason we want to wait to do the resubmittal is that one comment is contingent upon a letter from the county regarding our sewer line. And if we resubmit the rest of the package without that letter, it's gonna be an automatic kickback, which makes no sense at all. It's gonna generate a third submittal no matter what. We think we'll probably end up having a third submittal anyways, just because as they start drawing closer, they get a little bit more in the weeds. But in any case, what we want to do for sure is we want to get that letter from the county to put in with that second submittal. I spoke to our engineers yesterday, and they had been in communication with the county, and they feel as though they're going to get that letter sometime early next week. So that's a great sign for us. In addition to that, our administrative parking reduction that we applied for has been approved.
Yeah, I heard
And
that.
that's a huge,
That's great.
that's huge.
Mhm.
Now, of course, that's all contingent on the rest of the site plan being approved. So at this point in time, the administrative parking reduction's been approved. The first round of comments from the site plan have been received by the engineers, by the landscape architect, and by MHK, the architects. MHK has already resubmitted their information back to Davidson Engineering. Emerge Design has already resubmitted back to Davidson Engineering. Davidson's already addressed all the things that they have to address. The only thing we're waiting for that second submittal is a letter from the county regarding the sewer line. That'll be resubmitted. In the meantime, we've been working with MHK and the construction committee and the subgroups on just fine tuning the overall project and really starting to look at, before they get into construction drawings, and we want to hold off on any construction drawings until we absolutely know what we can build. Because if we start designing the fitness center this way and do construction drawings, and then the county comes back and says, oh no, you can't do that, that's going to end up driving a change order. So we're all on the same page with regard to with MHK, with Davidson, that we want to get that second review in, monitor the comments, and then at that point in time, we would release MHK to do their construction drawings. And that's obviously for us, it's a risk on our part, but at the same time, it will help facilitate being able to move forward, in a more efficient manner down the road. We did the same exact process when we built the golf course maintenance buildings. Once we knew we were going to be able to build what we wanted to build, that's when we said, okay, go ahead, do the construction drawings, because that involved all the engineers, electrical, every engineer you can think of, and that's when the costs start going up there.
So if that's likely to be doable after the second submission is reviewed and commented, what's left for the third submission, and anything, or do we expect maybe we can get by with just two?
We might be able to get by with just two submissions.
The third is just kind of a small cleanup thing?
Generally. And what happens is, the way I read their comments is that if you don't pay very close attention to that second submission, and they feel like you're just trying to, that third submission, they might just recommend that, take this out of the quay and make them start over. So that's why we want to be so anal about getting that second submission just right.
Okay.
So what would happen is, say the second submission goes in and okay, things are looking good. We're good with fire review, because that's a biggie, fire review, and the others, if we're all good there, and we say to MHK, okay, do your construction drawings. We know that MHK's construction drawings are going to be basically an 8-week process. Okay. Because our goal is we like to bid it all at one time, because we feel like we know that there could be a cost savings or cost avoidance by awarding one contract to one GC. Although we'll be able to break up the way the implementation is with their guidance and what works for them. So once we say that MHK, your construction drawings, we know that that's an 8-week period of time. We get the construction drawings back. Now we're ready for bid. We notify the to contractors that we want to bid, give them a couple of weeks to come in. We're gonna have to give them at least a month to go through
Sure.
and then come back. So once we release MHK, we're still probably looking at another 14 to 16 weeks before we actually have the hard bids in. So, from the contractors. In the meantime, we're doing the golf course, we're getting the bulkhead sorted out, we're getting tennis, because once the site plan is approved, we can build
Oh,
a
the
tennis.
tennis, yeah, that's right, that can,
We can
and the
build-
bocce, right?
And the bocce, exactly. And what we want to do is we want to build out, we want to build from the bulkhead to the green, to bocce, the tennis. That's gonna be the most efficient way to build that, that complex. And so that's kind of how we're lining everything up right now.
So in everything we have, you said bulkhead, that's the big word. In all those comments we got back from the county, and maybe perhaps in the pre-app meeting, we're very comfortable that the bulkhead location is not going to be an issue with, lane grabs or filling lakes and things like that.
Exactly right. We're
So
very
we're,
comfortable.
so we're good to go for that, it appears.
We're very comfortable. We do need so the permit that we need is an environmental resource permit from South Florida Water Management District.
Right.
And they've gotten, they're in receipt of the permit, they're reviewing it. We've had a pre-app meeting with them. But there aren't any red flags because we have so much watershed here. And we're not increasing the impervious surface that much, even with this whole new complex. So we feel very comfortable that the bulkhead the bulkhead, the tennis and the bocce, none of that can happen without the site plan being approved. So, but some of the other things in advance, staging, demo, there's some things that we can do in advance of that site plan, and that's how we're working the whole process. And right now, just as an example, the bulkhead people, it's MGR Services who manages it, but it's AMJAC is under that's their licensing. But what will happen is, if for some reason or another, something blows up, they can reshape the bulkhead for us and build it up to, if we had to. But that's not gonna be the case. It's not. So we're very comfortable with where everything is right
So
now.
we like the idea of something like November 15th, maybe doable.
Yes. For all.
That is as wise as I could, but
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, our target dates of August 15th, October 1 for 18, November 15th, right now are very real. Very real.
For tennis and bocce.
And then tennis and bocce, it's one of the reasons we wanted to sign the contract with US Tennis was they wanted to be able to order all the fence and all the materials, so they had it on site, plus everything's going up in cost. So and they're storing it for us. So and what I've said to US Tennis is that based on the progress that's happening on the new 9, and based on the site development plan and the environmental resource permit, that our goal is to have US Tennis in here to start their demo right around June 15th. And that way, even if we don't have the site plan at that time, they can start their demo. And then at that time as well, we're gonna have 85% of the dirt relocated for not only the golf course, but for US Tennis as well.
We're about a 5-month cycle for US Tennis.
Yes.
So it'll be about November 15th.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
And we are gonna be their #1 priority. So once we are their #1 priority, and
They're good people.
they're very good. Absolutely.
Anybody wants to see what it looks like, you should go to Countryside. And that facility is stellar,
They
stellar.
And that,
Including bocce, by the way.
yeah, and Forest Glen, I guess they just did their bocce courts. US Tennis just did their bocce courts, and some of the people from the bocce committee went over there and said, just what they said it would be, just spectacular.
If I may just toss in a gratuitous comment, listening to you explain how this is all being handled. With everything you got on your plate these days, I want you to know, I feel that we're in very good hands, and I appreciate
Thank you.
all the work you're putting in to keep this thing under control and scheduled and moving forward and efficient and everything else. So thank you for all that you've done so far and all I know you're going to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure. My pleasure. Okay.
All right, well, we'll move on to the controller's report.
Yeah. It's the Donald meeting.
First and foremost, as I had mentioned, with regard to the actual financials, I'm monitoring the revenues and expenses, and Geraldine will actually do the formal financials. One of the things that is really positive is that in March, we did almost 10,000 rounds of golf this year, which is fantastic. So golf revenues were in very solid shape. Also, from a food and beverage standpoint, last year, for half the month, we were takeout only. And this year, and obviously there's a huge deficit in our revenue, but this year, we actually generated $30,000 more in revenue this March than we did last March. So again, that's a really good sign.
And that's food and beverage?
That's food and beverage. Now, that's compared to last year, not compared to what was projected for last year, but still, all things considered, and the fact that we're running with a much lighter staff in all areas, not necessarily intentionally, but some by intention, but some not. The way the entire, all the departments have managed their expenses for the past, not only 13 months, but the last several years has been really outstanding. So from a revenue standpoint, we're looking very solid for March, especially in golf. One of the highlights in golf was that our merchandise, we had $50,000 in merchandise sales, and we projected about $42,000 in merchandise sales.
Just for March?
Just for March.
Wow.
And that's the best month I can remember since the early 2000s. The best single month that I can remember since the early 2000s. So not having member guests and not having some of those other big events that really do generate a lot of revenue. Just an incredible job by Mary Linda. And to be honest with you, the way they're selling clubs and the lessons that are being taken with TrackMan has been incredible.
So that TrackMan has.
The TrackMan is
contributing.
TrackMan, it's been outstanding. When members are asking for lessons, they're asking to take the lesson with TrackMan. There's a lot of purchases that are happening, which is wonderful. So, from a standpoint of on a day-to-day, monthly basis, we're doing very well. As I said, the expenses, we'll have a full report on the expenses, but ultimately, by paying attention to the payrolls, the payrolls have been very consistent for the last 2 months. There's been no serious fluctuation in the payrolls. And really monitoring, as I mentioned, the bank accounts. There's a number of things that Roger might talk about a little bit later that we've done over the last couple of weeks, just because we need a little bit more freedom to operate, because just like everything else, Pam was so tied to all of our banking information and guarded it very well, on the members' behalf. But it does create some difficulties when you have a tragic event like this. But Roger and Mrs. Phillips and others have done a great job of getting the money relocated, and so that we can operate in an efficient manner without any hiccups and be able to, move things forward and move things along. The other thing that I would say is that, Pam had built a long relationship with Iberia Bank, and I can't tell you, in my opinion, how much that has paid off over the past several weeks. Our representative Anita has been there for phone calls, to answer questions, to help me, to help Halsey, to help Layla, the Roger, I mean, they've been incredible. So that's really has paid off. As far as our foreclosures are, we're still in the same position. We basically have 2 accounts that are at the attorney, and after this last month, it looks like there's a 3rd account that we're going to be sending to the attorney. One of these accounts, they are making payments, but at this point in time, the payments are in a few months won't even cover the interest. But of the $55,000, that's aging. There's about 35 to 40 of that is coming from five accounts, and half of that, more than half of that, is from one account. But those accounts are at the attorney, and looking at the report that I pulled up yesterday, it looks like we're going to have to send one more account to the attorney. But on the good side, some of the ones that were delinquent in February that had more to do with sales and transactions of sales, we've had so many closings that a lot of those smaller ones have cleared up. So overall, still in a solid position. However, we do have what I would call 3 accounts that are very, very disturbing and challenging that we have to.
When you say we send them to the attorney, what does the attorney
To
do?
start the lien process.
Oh, still, okay. So we haven't started foreclosures on any of them.
Right.
And have we got existing liens on any of those, or is he, I mean, is he moving promptly enough to make sure we're leaning?
Well, that's one of the reasons why I want to call him, talk to him, is because I know one of them there's a lien.
Yeah.
But because this hasn't been my.
Yeah, all right, okay,
handle.
fair enough.
I want to step in there and say, okay, if these things have been dormant, we've got to start moving, because these balances are getting a little bit.
Right, and we don't want to lose our lien position
Yeah,
for some
right,
reason. So, yeah, make sure when you talk to him that he's on top of it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And to follow up on that, refresh my memory, but I believe that there's a hierarchy in liens and we're not at the top.
Yeah, in Florida, the bank is at the top.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there may be other creditors
Right,
getting judgments.
right,
They would be
right.
ahead of us before
Right,
we file our
right.
lien.
And then
So,
there's some time period that elapses too, right?
There's a very complex
Yeah.
time period.
Yeah. So you have to like renew it, or you fall off the list,
well,
or something like
yeah,
that.
all I want to make sure is that we get our lien in on time,
Right.
that we're not
Right.
behind other creditors. And that he's, these things aren't just sitting on his desk,
Right.
that he's working on.
Yeah,
Thanks.
no, like I said, that there's one, there was one that's been with them for a long time, and then payments were being made, but as I said, these balances are getting to the point where we've got to make sure that.
To your recollection, have we ever foreclosed on a property here?
I
We can
don't.
foreclose, can
Sure we can.
we? We
Well,
can.
once you get a lien, you should.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, no, to my recollection, I don't believe we've ever foreclosed.
Okay.
I don't recall Foxfire ever foreclosing.
We're too far behind other creditors.
You know, there's been associations in Foxfire that have foreclosed on properties.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I think Foxmore one, I believe, a few years back foreclosed on the property, I believe.
Okay.
But as I said, it's a small group, but it's concerning, and obviously it's one of the things that we want to get cleared up and addressed. And this is one of the areas where I'm, it's not something I've handled on a monthly basis, but I will take care of it now.
Yeah, thanks.
Address it appropriately.
I was encouraged by what you mentioned here and what you mentioned earlier, that we're doing 3 to 5 closings a week. So that's a lot of sale, right?
Well, there's the number of sales. I mean,
Yeah,
Layla's been very busy.
this is good.
Yeah.
For whatever it's worth, and Donald probably doesn't anyway. In 2019, I think we had 49 units. 2020, we had 55 units closed.
Yeah.
And Donald, we're probably pretty close to 50 units in the first 2 months.
Yeah.
Right, that should give you a relative number.
Right.
Somebody at the art meeting yesterday made the comment that he thought there were only 3 properties still available for sale in Foxfire.
It's now 2.
What was
The other
that?
one- the other
Well, that's really
Other
something.
bid came out
That's really
yesterday.
something, yeah.
Yeah, there's 2.
Oh, that's great. I attribute a lot of that to the passage of the master plan, but that's just,
The realtors say that made a significant jump in interest in our properties when that passed.
Not only in sales, but also in quality of sale.
yeah.
In September, because I did this when we were trying to get master plan passed, just quickly. Countryside was at 100, I'm talking about condos, villas, verandas, okay?
Yeah.
Countryside was $175 a square foot, we were $155 roughly.
Mhm.
In December, we were getting a little closer, both at about 175, and numbers that I'm looking now are probably closer to $185 is what it comes to.
Per square foot in Foxfire.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
excellent.
that's
That's
good to
terrific.
hear.
Really good.
I just didn't want that to go by the wayside. It's a nice success story.
Good news is today I don't have any capital requests, so that's a good.
It's like $7,000 in
Yeah, right, that's right, that's right.
For a party,
That's right,
yeah.
right. And then the PPP update. So we've been working on PPP. Do you want to talk about
No,
that?
go ahead.
Okay. So we've been working on, as you all know, with the PPP, really since last April. That's when we filed our first application for the PPP loan that would be turned into a grant. And for the past basically year, we've had a subcommittee that has been meeting pretty much on a weekly basis, because there have been so many modifications to eligibility and how the guidance that was coming from the Small Business Administration. And as of yesterday, we had a conversation with Geraldine because we wanted to make sure that the numbers that we were working with tied back to what she would say would be the proper numbers to submit. We've used our SEM along the way. And as of yesterday, we actually submitted our forgiveness application. So as Dr. Cornett had mentioned, that Roger, Lynn Anderson, Helen Westling, they've been unbelievable throughout this entire process. And then, this was another area where Pam had all the information and was doing a beautiful job with this and kept it on track. And then we had to jump in there, and the people from Lake Michigan Credit Union were just incredible with understanding the issue, what had happened, and providing the guidance that we needed over the last few weeks. And so our application was officially submitted yesterday. We're obviously going to await any feedback if there's any supporting documents that they require beyond what we've submitted. But I'm very confident with the package that we did submit, and we know that the payroll that we spent for that period of time and the forgiveness that we're asking for, purely payroll, is roughly about half of what we spent. So we were approved originally for $660,240 PPP loan, and we spent over $1.3 million in our 24-week period on payroll alone. So really no reason to not believe we would be granted forgiveness. We've complied with all the standards, with everything all the protocols. And again, I just want to thank the whole group, because it was a lot of changes, a lot of moving the goal markers, a lot of the last
An incredible amount of documentation that was necessary. So Pam did such a wonderful job.
Thank you, Roger, and everybody on that. Have we been carrying this loan as a liability, and how we can take that off our books when this gets forgiven, or do we turn into income? How's that?
It has to go to a forgiveness stage, which comes from Lake Michigan, and then it has to go to a grant stage from the Small Business Administration, and eventually it will become grant.
So we've been carrying it as a liability, I assume, and then we can just wipe that liability, and so our balance sheet will then
Eventually.
improve. What about there was an employee retention credit, where does that stand?
The employee retention credit, and just so everybody understands, when the CARES Act was created last March, there was an employee retention credit that could be applied for, and there was a PPP, but you couldn't qualify for both of them. That was the way it was stated. So we didn't even think of the ERTC, and nor should we have. And the time frame on the dollar amount that we applied for, we thought we had to do it for 8 weeks because that's the way that was stated. The Small Business Administration changed the time frame that you could use funds for, and it became 6 months. And then on December 27th of last year, the Small Business Administration changed policy and said you can apply for the ERTC tax credit in addition to the PPP. So the intent now that the PPP committee has made in council with RSM is to apply for the ERTC, but that will come down the road.
Okay.
It has the potential to be about $350,000. And that is material enough to certainly pursue. But we won't know that for a number of months, and we're not overly concerned about that at this particular point in time. We are going to apply for that.
Thanks for staying on top of it. Great.
Okay. Under new business, Foxfire rentals.
Okay.
Do we,
Well,
Who wants to start? Well, let me just say how it started. And it grew, and it effectively grew. But I had asked Chris Jackstad, just because I went by a house and I saw different people, and I said, Chris, do I give this to you? And he said, I can't, because I'm a chairman of the rules committee, and if I'm involved in it, I'm like an attorney in the case, and I'm also the judge in the case. So we went to other discussions, and Jim got a copy of it, and we've gone back and forth, and what it comes down to is we can believe that there are rentals going on in Foxfire that perhaps do not match up to the what is required as per our bylaws and also in our directory. And that's brought this to a head.
I in further to add to Ray's comments, also several of us received an email from one of our members saying not only are we not paying attention to the minimum rental period, which I think is in our declaration of covenants, it's got to be at least 30 days rental period. But he was also concerned that maybe we ought to establish a maximum of 6 months rather than allowing year-round rentals. But right now, I think we're just talking about the minimum of 30-day rental. I looked into how that ought to get enforced, and my understanding of the way this works, and I'm trying to pull together the statutes, our bylaws, our declaration of covenants, and the rules committee charter, and trying to bring order to it, at least in my head. And that if a complaint is raised, the rule, I think the bylaws say it's the intention to get the neighborhood committee to try and resolve it first. If they are unwilling or incapable of resolving it, then the complaint is referred to the rules committee. And it is referred to the rules committee either from the board or from the general manager. And once it is referred to the rules committee, it is their job to investigate it and send a report back to the board on what they have found and what they recommend. The board then decides what the discipline, if any, they will undertake, which can include fines or suspension of privileges and maybe a couple of other things. And that then, the decision of the board is then referred to what's called the statutory rules committee. It differs from the rules committee. And the statutory rules committee then holds a hearing, at which time the alleged violator is allowed to present their defense. And the statutory rules committee job is to either affirm or deny the decision of the board. That's their only choice. Yes, we report, and no, we don't. And once they do, that decision is final. So that's kind of what the lay of the land is for enforcing these things. And I don't know how best to proceed if we want to. The investigative arm is supposed to be the rules committee. That's in their charter. And so I don't know where Chris, if Jackstead is on the rules committee or the statutory rules committee. If he's on statutory rules, he should not be involved in investigation. If he's only on rules, then that's his mandate. There you have it. Well, and how best to proceed. If we want to bypass the neighborhood committee, it goes right from the general manager or the board to the rules committee. They investigate it and they interview people and they make a report back to the board.
Well, I don't think we should bypass the associations, and I would suggest that Ray, you as liaison to the President's Council, get together with them and get them to produce their rules for each individual association as to what their rental periods are and how they monitor it, if they monitor it, and what's their recourse.
And I've done that already. You understand, what's there, 18 individuals, some of which are not, as I think I wrote to all of you. There really isn't a President's Council that has an organization. It's more, we'll kind of meet at the same tree one time a month. We'll talk, or every 4 months. I would suggest that I think what starts this program is a firm policy and procedure that's available to the owners and to the renters. And in conjunction with that, there probably also should be firm understanding of what the fines or suspensions are and how they result. And I don't think that's there. So what I mentioned earlier, the different boards on these community associations do not really know who is in their units improperly. They will now when they get the report of what is being rented and is available. That's the beginning. So now they can police it for themselves. Then they can go through the process that we're talking about here. But I would suggest that what we're facing is an overall policy. And in fact, Donald, I don't know this. When someone rents here, they come into the office. Do they get a packet of information of rules and regulations?
Yes, if they're transferred, so because what we do is we basically transfer the membership.
Right.
So and then so when they come in, we give them the renters, all the rules, all the regulations, set them up with the member number and all those things.
So they get 2 or 3 pages of documents.
They get
this is what you gotta do. Okay, good. So they know what they shouldn't be doing.
If they transfer the membership, but if they don't transfer the membership, then we don't have any, and so and I've talked to our attorney about this before, said, where should we stand? He said, and what his comments were back then was, you're not a rental agency. What you're there to do is the owner has rented their unit. They've complied by whatever the standards are. And then you're going to transfer the membership because you're getting a valid transfer form. And that transfer form is going to be, for a 30-day rental. If it's less than 30 days, then you obviously wouldn't accept another transfer form for at least 30 days. So there's like this little tiny gray area where, we have this thing that can slip through the cracks. And one of the things is, and we talked about this before, is that I believe in every neighborhood association, there's got to be something in their docs that have some sort of a guideline to what their policy is, because their policy can't be less restrictive than ours.
Can be more restrictive.
But it can be more restrictive. Right. And so the rental, and this isn't to pass the buck, but I think the rental of those units, it's almost like an ARC application. The rental of those units should really almost be approved by their board before they come here. I think that might, because now everybody knows, everybody knows. So I still think, and I think that, because obviously the goal is you want to make sure that we know who's coming into the community, we know who's leaving the community, so on and so forth. But there's got to be some criteria, I believe, in those individual units. As far as the homeowners, obviously that's for us to deal with. you know, for the master deal, because there's not a official, even though there's a St. Cloud Homeowners Association, they're not recognized as an official HOA. But, and that's where it gets a little bit dicey, because there is that gray area, and that we don't really know exactly, you know, I believe in Villas 2, they're 90 days. That's a minimal rental of 90 days. I don't really know, I'd have to look how many places in Villas 2 get rented a year. I would say probably not very many. I think more of the people that live in Villas 2 probably use their villa, you know? But I could be wrong there too. So I think that there has to be some coordination so that everybody's working together to get this resolved. But I really think that in this case, especially in those, I mean, for me, I have no clue who's living next door to Mrs. Frank. I mean, I do, only because she's right across from the office. But when it comes to these other associations, I have no idea who's staying in those places.
Exactly the concern that the president brought up in the meeting that we had, and the fact that people are coming in and they don't know. So let's say they now know because we give them a list, and they can then go back and say, you're not on the list.
Right.
They can go, then that board, let's call it, can come back to the main office and say, 208's got somebody in there and they're not on my list. And then you can start the process. So I think there's so many different things that fit into this, and you're identifying that part of it. And then there's the other situation where, and I suppose when we get to the golf, I'll bring it up because there's data being accumulated by them. But what's interesting to me is that we actually, and I believe this is correct, we actually have two types of transfer fees. One's a golf transfer and one's a social. I think that's correct.
Right.
And it brings us to another level of our discussions, because I believe you can transfer a social membership for $55.
Right.
And I say to all of us, we're spending $9.5 million, including a brand new fitness center when it comes in. Do we want to let somebody come into our facility for $55 and have the use of that? We should not be the lowest priced entity in Naples. And in fact, with the money we're investing, we should be, some people have said to me, we should be at the top. I'm saying we should be at least at the 75 percentile. So a comparative study that is being done, it's relatively done already by the golf committee. They want to pure it out for their next meeting, and then it will be presented to the board. And it's a comparison of 12 different communities on all different aspects of what they do with tenants. So my suggestion is that we think about forming a committee, a subcommittee, to study all of this, so that when November comes, we can come back and have a firm policy in place. And perhaps a little bit in advance of that, we can send it out to the owners and say, here's the policy that's going to come in. So if you're going to bring renters in, understand that's where we're at. And I'll just sweeten it a little bit by saying that one of the thoughts was certainly raising the transfer fee, but if we did it, doing it incrementally. So maybe if you're here for 3 months, you're going to pay more than 1 month. This is ideas that are being bounced around. But what's happening now is, admittedly, 84 people rented in the month of March, I believe. Was that, you know, was it 84?
Yes, I will.
And we normally say 140. I think that's the number. Well, I think it's more than 84 that have been in here.
Sure.
So we have to find a way to regulate and protect our community. That's
So
all.
getting
But
back.
is that our responsibility as the master association? If somebody doesn't have a membership transfer, they merely have a renter in one of the buildings, we have no knowledge of who that person is, and can we override that over that association
Well,
and say, you must tell us?
Roger.
And if they can't tell us, can we force them to tell us?
Well, I think you're putting a responsibility on the sub-association. The fact of the matter is,
It's where it belongs.
well, I'm not sure that's the case, because if that's the case, then we should have they're part of our community. I mean, shouldn't they have a standard policy rather than individual policies?
I would agree with you that it would be beneficial to have a standard policy. Can we get each of, can we as a master community say you have to have a standard policy?
I think
You
it's
have to
in,
do 90 days and another one's doing 30 days.
well, the minimum is, we have a 30-day policy. Anybody, they can't be any more lax than that. They can say it's 60 or 90 days. And I think they have the right to do that somewhere in these bylaws. I think it says that any community can establish a policy stricter than this, but not less strict than this. But I could be wrong. But if we're gonna put the responsibility on the individual communities, that's a change from what we're doing now, or at least when I was on the board of Verandas One, we never worried about who was renting. It never came to us. But we're gonna now say Verandas One, Verandas Two, it is your responsibility to process all applications for rental transfers. And then after it goes to you first, then it must come to the main office, and it is your responsibility to ensure that this takes place. And we will not process anything in the main office until we have notification it's gone through your organization first. That's the clear policy we'll have to send if we're gonna put the monkey on their back to do it, which is fine. That's, like Roger says, that's probably where it belongs. And once they sign off on it, then they bring the permission slip down to the main office and we transfer their membership privileges for that period of time. But
that's the policy that I think that would be, I think that type of policy, and I know it's not something that the condo associations and the neighborhood association, those management companies want to get involved with, but for this to work the way everybody wants it to work, I think that's the only way.
And that's fine, but my point is we just gotta make that abundantly clear now to these associations, because I don't think,
Oh, no,
my
right.
experience is they know that that's.
Just like I said, our position has always been, when someone comes in with a transfer form, they're coming with a transfer form, it's gonna be filled out, it's gonna be signed by the owner and the person renting, and that's our guideline. If we know that, Mr. Smith is transferring his condo in Fox Club to so on and so forth, we're looking to make sure all that information's in there. The association themselves, how they handle the rentals has really been up to them individually. And again, I don't think that, and I'm sure they already have I'm sure they all have a policy. I just don't know if any of those individual associations are following that policy.
Correct, I believe they're not.
And
so I guess that's my point, is if we create a form that includes another signature line now for the association to sign off on, then we know, we'll just simply tell the renter, we can't transfer this until you get approval from the association.
But suppose I do an Airbnb for a week and I'm a beach person. I don't care about Foxfire. All I want is a place to sleep. How
That's a different
are
issue.
we gonna know?
And if we find out about that, that's where we gotta start taking some enforcement action against the owner of the property who's renting it out on a weekly basis. Because you're right, we will not have knowledge of that necessarily, unless somebody gives us a
Well,
complaint.
that's it. But then somebody who's a neighbor or what have you has got to recognize this situation and initiate action through their association.
Correct.
Right.
But we don't even know they're there.
But Bill, and that's the point. The point is that if somehow or other that document doesn't get back to that individual board, they're really guessing. But if they knew, let's use March 1st, there's going to be 12 units that are going to be occupied, then they would have a defined number. And that's where the confusion starts. My point is, and somebody brought up earlier, if we had a standardized procedure in a form and it had to be signed off by the sub-association, then the sub-association could say, we could have a form come out of the main office. Here's what you gotta do. Before you do anything, you've gotta go to this representative in the board, sub-association, have them sign off that the rental is authorized. That would be the simplest way, rather than have the sub-association prepare all the documents, send it into the office, not have it be right, have it go back to, that's what I'm saying.
Basically, if it's something if we could do, we take our transfer form, and that transfer form has another signature line.
Correct.
Right.
Us initiating the list and sending it to the president saying, okay, by the way, although it might help, it's not going to solve the real issue.
Right.
And the real issue is going to be it coming up the ladder.
Right. Correct. To my point earlier, if therefore we had a policy
Mhm.
that would be given to each one of the sub-associations, which I think they would welcome. These are all of the rules and regulations. We can always change the page rather than make it a booklet. And then we have an additional page. If it does not happen, you are subject to these fines or suspensions, even if it isn't identified as dollars, but it's listed. Now we've established to every owner in this place that they have a responsibility to follow the rules. And these are our rules. And I think that's where we're chasing right now.
Yeah, and
Does that sound right?
yeah, and to be very honest with you, I mean, just from a standpoint of a process, there's probably 35 to 40% of check-ins when they come in, they don't have a signed form to start with. And so Linda and Stella are making all kinds of phone calls and things like that, just to get the owner to sign, get the proper documentation.
And I think if you go through, it's 2.4 to 2.8 rule, this comes in the bylaws. But if part of this says, the members shall be responsible for keeping the master association informed as to the names of persons that are coming in.
Right.
Okay, ages and their addresses is,
Mhm.
So my point is, if we do this sometime before November, an email goes out to the entire membership, gets posted on the communications website to say, these are the rental policies and procedures. And it clearly states what that member should be looking to do. And what I find interesting, because we have 84 rented units, I pulled this up from the website. I'm going to count roughly that there are about maybe 20 units that are showing as possible rental opportunities, yet we have 84. So some of them are going to be annual repeats, I get it, but obviously.
Well, we're purging that every 90 days, so the members have to give us new information.
Right, so we've got a small list right
So
now.
we've got a small list right now.
We got it. Okay.
What would be helpful to all of us, I think, is if you had the conversation, and Ray, I know you're working with the presidents of the various associations, see if they will embrace the thoughts and process that you have there. I don't want to see us load extra things on the front office to make the phone calls if a president of association says, hey, it's none of your business what our people are doing over here.
Well, Roger, based upon what we say here today, I will send an email out to each one of those presidents and hope they respond. They're not all into a president's council. Remember, it's not a formal committee. But I certainly will send it out, give an indication of what we're trying to do and the reasons why. What's your opinion? Where do you stand on it? I can only tell you that from the ones that I spoke to as a sounding board, they were certainly in agreement that they're looking for that assistance.
We at Fox Hollow in the last month have had that conversation, even precluding this coming up, and have tried to institute what that procedure would look like, and getting to the point where, we're going to communicate with our owners at Fox Hollow. Here are the forms, here's the procedure, this is what the expectation, but perhaps we should wait now until, we resolve this a little bit. But it has come up at Fox Hollow, and we deal with it on a one-to-one basis, basically, try to provide them with the forms and the explanation of what they need to do.
Well, if we start with if we put the onus, first of all, on the owners, and we send an email out to the owners and say, this is what is expected of you, and we can phase it in, and after such and such a date, the administrative office will not accept transfer fees unless they are approved by the sub-association. And we give them a little time to get used to the idea, and then we enforce it and say, and then Linda doesn't have to make the calls. This isn't signed. It's going back.
That's right. She should simply say to the people, I'm sorry, you need more signatures. Come back when it's signed. And she doesn't have to make those calls.
Right. She wouldn't have to make those calls.
I agree. I think so. So I will send out the email. I have a feeling it's going to lead to more than just Ray and a couple of presidents making this policy. So I think we ought to think who we're going to bring in to perhaps form a committee during the summer to get this done. I think that's where we're
All right,
at.
so now with single-family homes, how do?
Well, there is no organization.
Yeah.
It's a loose confederation. They have no standing at all to do anything.
But it-
basically
the
haven't
problem
picked
isn't,
this one.
we're not having Airbnbs at a single family homes. it's
We
not.
have,
Yes.
we
Oh,
have
yeah.
them advertised
Sure.
Airbnbs for
Okay, my bad.
1
But,
week.
but those ones, but again, that goes back to with that, those we can send directly to the rules committee.
Correct, that's what I was
Yeah.
gonna say. This gets back to what you voiced earlier, Bill, about these week-long rentals where they just go to the beach
Yeah.
and how these are slipping through the cracks. If any, we ought to publicize this. If anybody has a suspicion, whether it's a president of an association or a neighbor or whoever, report it to Donald or report it to the board. And once either of us find that out, all we do is say, we have this complaint from so-and-so rules committee. You check it. It is the first duty under the charter responsibilities of the rules committee, A, to accept complaints received by the board of directors or general manager only and review the same for any proposed action. They are to investigate complaints stemming from violations of any association rule or regulation. So that's their charter, and we might as well give them something to do if we get these complaints. They're the ones who should investigate it and report back to us.
Chris Jackstad is chair of the Rules Committee and Bill White is chair of the Statutory Rules
And
Committee.
Chris can get involved in investigations. He could not if he were adjudicating them.
That was good. Okay,
Okay, so the conclusion is, Ray, you'll send out an email, and you want to think about putting together an ad hoc committee?
I'll
to
start
come back next-
exploratory. I'll see which one of those presidents wants to be, but I think there should be perhaps some other people up to just them involved. But we can figure that out. Fair enough?
Why don't you recommend to the board who you would like to see form this committee?
Okay.
Get it going.
Let's get it started. We'll get it started. Thank you.
Regard to the bank, Donald, you want to talk about the signatures?
Sure, I just want to say that everyone's been great about coming over and doing the signature cards, where there will be a couple more that will be coming down the pike here in these next few weeks. So getting those signature cards sorted out and cleaned up is, your cooperation is greatly appreciated. But we are totally squared away with Iberia, which is the most important, and the others we have to do some other modifications with. The other item is on the golf course, the loan closing to the golf course assessment. We actually did close the loan yesterday, and so we identified over the last several months how many members wanted to pay over a period of 10 years compared to pay all at once. And we were able to calculate all of that out so that the formal loan documents were signed yesterday, and the loan was approved, was obviously pre-approved, but was funded as of yesterday. So that's a big help, because from the standpoint of all the equipment that you see arriving
You want bills to pay?
is not inexpensive.
And for those of us who signed the checks, it's nice to know now. We don't have money.
Yes, yes.
Do you want to say something about preserving the integrity of the capital funds?
Sure. So one of the items is that, and this kind of circles in all aspects of this next two bullet points. We have our capital repair and replacement reserve, and then we also have our capital improvement fund. And one of the areas where Helen Westling has been really helpful is identifying where Pam had those funds in the various bank accounts, which tied back to our investment policy, which we're going to also talk about. And what a few years back, our investment policy was rewritten because RSM had said, well, you're not following your investment policy. So we had the finance committee rewrite it. And what that did is it drove that every single account had to be FDIC insured, which means that everything had to have a balance of less than $250,000. And therefore, that's what drove Pam to open up all these bank accounts.
Oh,
And so that's why we ended up with all these different bank accounts. And so she would have, portions of the capital repair and replacement fund with one account, another portion in another account. And what we're doing now is we're kind of streamlining that. And then Helen's is kind of driving the oversight there to make sure that If we're supposed to have $1.3 million in capital repair and replacement, this is where it is. If we're supposed to have $1.1 million in this is where it is. And whether or not it ends up leading to opening another sweeps account of some sort where we will have protection, that's kind of part of this puzzle that we're kind of reconfiguring. So there are a lot of moving parts and a lot of facets here, but fortunately we do have the help and expertise of people like Helen and Lynn to help kind of guide through on this.
Now, let me interject something. Less is more is my theme. Pam and I had conversations literally for the past year and a half about the number of banking relationships that we had. And in January of this year, Pam and I agreed now is the time to reduce the number of banking relationships that we have. Pam had identified with me 4 banks that she wanted to close down money market funds because we can efficiently keep things within line of the FDIC requirements merely by funding them into Iberia or Raymond James if we chose to do that, because they do it for us. And we knew that there was going to be a challenge to make certain that we had money readily available. And then Pam got ill and we just never got around to closing them. So the board knows what we did in the past 10 days. We closed down Chase relationship, Wells Fargo, BB&T, and Fifth Third. And all of them had anywhere from $220,000 to $250,000 in those particular accounts. We've shifted those funds into Iberia, and now Helen Wessling and Lynn Anderson are doing a superb job of making certain that they fall into the right capital funds. So that will be clarified via the support of some great and talented individuals who are part of the finance committee. But less is more. These 4 bank relationships they were dormant accounts in the vision of a bank. No money had been put in or no money had been extracted over the course of the past 18 months. Therefore, they didn't even know who the officers were in our community. 2 of the banks only had Taffy on the list. She had to physically go to those branches to close out those accounts. 2 of them only knew of me, and they knew of me and Taffy and Dr. Cornetta, but they didn't know about the rest of the board. And we want to prevent that type of thing in the future. It'll be easier for us for our financial team, our new controller, Halsey, et cetera, to make certain that they are moving funds smoothly and efficiently. As we go through this master plan, when and if the time comes when the construction committee and operations said we need some extra dollars, we have to pay a bill, it's going to be there immediately for them. So those are the reasons that we put those things in motion. And Lynn and Helen, as we've said a couple of times, they've done a great job. They have both committed to make certain that they're staying on top of things with operations as we're moving forward.
Thank you. Trustees for the 401k, Don?
Yeah, so one of the things that we do have to have is we have to have a formal resolution, because we did last year change over from John Hancock to Vanguard for our 401K. And we want to have more than one trustee listed as part of our plan. And so we do need a formal resolution to approve 3 trustees who will be for our 401K plan. And those trustees are Jim Klusendorf, who's been our trustee for, I think, the last 17 years, and he's here year round. Bob Dixon and Jim Moore. So we do need a formal resolution that I can provide to Vanguard and to EJ Reynolds so that they can process the proper paperwork and get that resolved. One of the issues why we want to certainly have more than one trustee is because, again, it's, if you only have one, it really does tie your hands. And that Pam was listed as the only administrator and there was only one trustee. So that made things complicated. So for me to even have contact and be able to do anything, I had to have Jim Klusendorf come and sign something for me. And that just makes all these processes that much more complicated. So
Thank goodness he's.
absolutely, oh no, absolutely. So
Is there a motion to,
Yeah, I make a motion that we appoint Jim Klusendorf, Bob Dixon, and Jim Moore, the 3 trustees for our Vanguard 401K account.
second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Would you record me as an abstention? I think it does, but I abstain.
Oh, you can probably. So.
Okay, investment policy?
and that's, as Roger had mentioned, there's a way for us to be able to comply with our current investment policy. But we just want to make sure that whatever we do, we're reviewing it with the finance committee and with the board over these next couple of months with the changes that we're making, so that when we do get to our audit, whatever investment policy is in place is what is provided to them, so there's no conflict.
Okay. Under old business, online voting. We had approved,
We did approve Host, HOAST, as the online voting provider. I volunteered to help with that, but things have been a little disrupted over the last 6 weeks, so I don't think we moved ahead. The good news is, and I know you wanted this in place by the next board election, my understanding of this process is that it takes probably around 30 days, at the worst 45 days, to get this all, assuming we have the information in an uploadable form, to get this all ready to go. So whenever it's convenient, and we did include on the job description for the new controller that they have familiarity with online voting. And I think that person is the logical person to be in charge of the data that the online voting system needs. I think so. I think we can put this on hold. No need to call Host right now. They'll just send us a bill. So when we have a new person on board and controller, I think that's the appropriate time to start the ball rolling on that. It'll certainly be ready to go by fall.
Great.
Later in the fall.
thank you. And the smoking policy, Christine.
So as to the topic of the smoking policy for Foxfire, it's not been quite as straightforward as perhaps we might have seemed at first. We did receive a legal opinion from our attorney, Steve Falk. We reached out to other clubs to learn whether they had a smoking policy in place. We considered medical and cultural norms around smoking in addition to other criteria important for us to make this decision moving forward. There is also an employee smoking policy in place in the employee handbook that needs to be considered. Foxfire is considered to be a blue zone community committed to the well-being of our members. And so certainly, as we know, smoking is a health hazard in many ways. So Monday, our committee sent out a sample test survey to members of the board, the standing committee members, and association members to get feedback regarding the questions being asked. And I also reached out to people in the community that have experience with creating surveys. The survey, we sent 177 surveys out to these members. To date, we've received 105 responses, which is a very good sampling. And these responses have been very, very helpful in order for us to finalize the survey. Our committee is having a meeting Tuesday afternoon to do that. I did want to, there are members that say, well, we don't need another survey, we're surveyed out. One of the questions that we asked on this survey of the members was, should this smoking survey be distributed to all Foxfire members? 88 members responded to this question, and 69 said yes, that we should send this survey out to all of our members. I think that's a pretty good representation of the fact that there is a consensus that this is an important survey to be sending out. So our committee is meeting next week to analyze, modify, edit the sample survey for recommendations, and should go out to the members in the very near future.
What was Steve Falk's legal opinion?
I believe I sent that, but I could look. Do you have that, Donald?
I don't recall seeing that.
I don't have it per se here, unless Donald has it.
Let me see here. The gist of it was that the board had the authority to, yeah, there was no requirement that we had to have a designated smoking area.
Okay.
That's pretty much.
That's fine.
Indoor Clean Air Act governs much of what is
Right.
allowed. The Foxfire campus, the whole campus can be considered a smoke-free campus because of the perimeters. These are all considerations that we're looking for.
Mhm.
And we'll certainly present all of that information as it comes forward. But again, I'm not even sure, I can't specifically find Foxfire's smoking policy. It does exist on page 10 of the member directory. We have not put it online because I haven't gotten a real confirmation of what it is, right? So, we're sort of starting not even with a basis, but I think that certainly, Steve Block's opinion is a good basis to start from. And it's more of a process to get to the answer than
Sure.
I think I certainly initially anticipated. So we're trying to take all the right steps to get there, to make a decision that's right for all of our members. There is no constitutional right to smoke in this country. And that's certainly a consideration, but we also know culturally that there's a lot of our members that love to smoke cigars on the golf course. So it's a consideration that we're.
Okay, well, I appreciate your continuing to work on it.
Yeah.
So obviously the basis of our smoking policy is that anything indoors is smoke free. And then we do have designated smoking, we do have a couple designated smoking areas which the board can have. And but smoking, including e-cigarettes, is the policy that's in place. That is, that e-cigarettes are considered the same, but other Florida Clean Indoor Air Act, obviously that governs everything indoors. And then we do have a couple designated spots where smoking is restricted.
Right.
I think for the board, we should also have for the record that what's prompting this review is the suggestion of the construction committee, which is entirely accurate. We are going to have a different campus, a different food and beverage situation a year and a half from now. We're going to have open windows. And right now, we can have a smoking area on the north side of this building. We're not going to be able to have smoking areas there. Should we have designated areas where smoking should take place? We want to make sure that we're listening to the members first, and then make certain we're passing that information back on to the
Right,
board.
and under the
Make a
new
decision.
configuration, we're gonna have 20 men who come in, and some of them, you're in that group, some of them.
Right.
I think I've seen you with a cigar.
There's
But at any rate, you
there's
need
no
a nice
question about it.
place where you can congregate,
Right.
have beer,
Right.
smoke cigars, and you're not interfering.
We have employees that in the food and beverage operation. 2 of them are smokers.
Right.
Out of in the back of the house. We have individuals in the parking lot that smoke cigarettes. We're not trying to chastise anyone. We want to make certain we're gathering the information.
And whatever smoking policy that the board decides on, it has to be enforceable. And we have to be able to enforce it. And so we have to be very, very careful that when we write this policy, it's fair and consistent with guidelines, legal guidelines, and that it's enforceable, because it becomes a problem when you start asking, well, who's going to enforce this? Are we going to ask the staff to enforce this? Yesterday, I got an email regarding a situation on the patio where there was guests that were vaping out there. They were not even on the north side of the patio. I mean, do we expect a staff member to approach them? Those are all little things that we need to think about. Who's then responsible for
Right,
the
we don't want
enforcement?
the wait staff to have to.
Exactly, that's exactly right.
But we also don't want to say, okay, smoking is over by the dumpster and think that that's going to be a realistic for.
Yeah.
for-
And that's not the
Our
direction we're
members,
thinking, but still in all, yeah, these are all these issues that have come up that initially you don't think about.
Okay, well, let's move on to the standing committees. We'll start with the Medical Advisory Committee, which does support Donald's statement that we continue the current restrictions until the end of this season. The Construction Committee, I think Donald's previous report pretty much details everything there. So are there any other committees, liaisons that wish to report?
Right, strategic planning, they are still waiting for the input from a number of the subcommittees for their wish lists. One of the things that they wanted me to point out is that they would like to put a gatehouse at the entrance, easy there, back on the table for consideration. So it's going to come back up just for consideration, not right away after the master plan is done. We're not going to be doing anything with front gates at the moment, but it's not off the
I
table.
have a very large file if anyone would like to use it.
I am sure you do.
Hey, before Kathy, and don't mean to interrupt you, just generally, earlier I gave out to the board this sheet, because I keep track, Linda gives me all the minutes of the meeting. I know that we had said I think the first board meeting I was at, I asked about the minutes, and we talked about the fact that we would get copies of the minutes of the meeting as presented by the various committees. You all have a sheet in front of you, and it shows which committees have been given to us, and the people that are listening in, they can't see it, but what it basically says is that the month of the year and the date in that month that the meeting was held by that committee. Where do we stand on that? Because as you look at this sheet, there are committees that are either not submitting reports, or they're not getting to us.
Well, I see you have Green that's not there, and the Green Committee, they submit minutes, we get them all the time.
Well, Linda,
That's Joe Collins.
Yeah.
But
actually, Charlie
And I got an email
Hunt.
from him this morning saying that he does get, the committee does get the Green Committee meeting minutes amongst themselves, and they send it to the board. They don't need to send it to us. So
as a member of the board, I haven't seen anything since
That's-
November.
he says that, Mr. Gibbons?
That's strategic planning committee. That's SBC, Mr. Gibbons.
Yeah, that's what he had said. Spud Gibbons. He sent me an email.
That's SBC.
Yeah, we have to have a record.
No, we have SBC. We have SBC.
Every one of them.
Ray was raising the Green
Green
Committee.
Committee.
You're talking about the Green Committee, not the.
Do you get?
No.
You don't get
I
committee
have-
minutes?
We can send them, we can, because Taffy and I get them, so,
Yeah.
yeah, so we can just forward them to Linda, and then she can distribute them.
Okay, because
Yeah.
given everything that's going on, it
Yeah,
probably would be good to go back to at least January to catch up.
Oh, no
I'll look,
question,
yeah, I'll look at what you have for holes, and I'll send them to Linda, and she can distribute them to everybody.
Yeah,
We did send out an email to all the committee chairs
Right.
advising them to do this. Maybe we should just resend that email.
As a matter of fact, I did. This week
Okay,
I
good.
did resend it to those who I have not heard from, requesting their secretary and requesting the meeting minutes for the season of October 2020 through current.
Okay.
All right, well then,
Some of these like rules and statutory rules, they don't need it all.
Right.
Yeah, and Memorial probably doesn't need it all.
Yeah, infrequently.
well, and somebody comes back, I'll just take it off. When I'm, you just tell me, I'll just say, we're not gonna get one. For example, I put safety, because I know Donald's a quarterly,
Right.
so that's my reminder.
I don't even know what the implementation committee is.
That's
In
probably
an,
just
in an
construction.
effort to,
Construction,
in an effort to streamline this process, and communication committee's been a little slammed, but we want to take some of the work off of Linda's plate in terms of having to email all these committee minutes to us. So Kathy is working on putting together a proprietary site for board members where all Linda has to do is scan it and put it in there for us, and then it's our responsibility to go get it, where she won't have to be, sending it to each one of us and this ad nauseum process. And I think that would really help a lot if you just had one place to put it and then we just go and get it.
What my process is that I have them send it to me.
Right.
Some of them do it in different formats, and so
Right.
some of them don't know how to email or do it in Word, so I just format it. It's there. We save it electronically as requested. We also save it a hard copy as requested in our files. From there, I just pull it from my electronic copy and I send it to the board. I can also add Nina to it so she can put it onto the website. I mean, if that's what you would like.
Oh, yes, what she's talking about is that what will happen is we'll have a portal for board members.
Mhm.
And so you just take those minutes, you put it in the portal with Nina, and then you don't have to worry about sending all these emails. You get the thing from Green Committee, put it in the portal, and there it's right there.
Right.
That's.
Yeah.
And whatever else we need for our board meetings can be put there, I mean, Linda spends a lot of time putting, all of this together for us. You could certainly, we should try to use technology to relieve staff of redundancy of process and procedure. I mean, anything that we can do to help them. Because, you go in there, especially at the beginning of the month, and you see everything that they're trying to accomplish. And you hate to you hate to ask them to do anything else. So we're just trying to help you. We're trying to think of it that way.
All right, as far as Green Committee, let's cue up the video and start with Silver 3. While she's doing that, I will add that, all right, well, we're right there. Okay.
This is what I've been told to wait for.
This is the good stuff, yeah. This is the good stuff. Okay, if this is what I think it is, no, that's the rhododendron.
That is I'm sorry.
All right, that's okay.
It's sort of out of context.
Stay with that.
Yeah.
This is what we paid for last month, the rhododendron. You can see how it tills up the dead grass and turns it into plantable earth, and
That's really cool.
does a terrific job.
Yeah, wow. Did I read somewhere also that buries rocks when it finds them? It was in their description.
It
It'll
varies rocks.
pull them up.
Pull them up,
Yeah.
okay.
But I think, Tabby, this is awesome for everyone to see because it was just purchased. We
It's
just
just
approved that purchase. And
$16,000 rhododendron.
Yeah.
We can use this not only now, but we can use it in the future too.
Yeah,
All
one,
right, let's go on to Silver 3. We've seen that go in so
let me see. I don't know what's next, but,
Okay, we don't know.
I'm
good. I'll ad-lib it. It's fine.
well, isn't that part of,
Yeah, this is Silver. Now look how cool this is. This is Silver 3. We're going from the men's tee box over those palmettos where all your golf balls are, gentlemen,
Oh, yeah. Right.
down the fairway. Now you can see that it has been trenched and filled in on the right. And then these other pipes that are there, those are the lateral pipes that'll go to the irrigation heads. Those large circles that you see in the middle, those are drains that have been reshaped so that the water will run down.
and I can stop this too if you,
Yeah, no, we're good.
okay.
So you can see that the trenching has been done for the main irrigation lines and that we're now getting ready to put in the lateral lines. And there's one of the circles for the drains. Didn't Jeremy do a terrific job on this?
Great job.
He's really getting good at this, really, really
Yeah.
good.
Get rid of some of those palmettos that would help us too. Want to make a motion, Roger? Yeah, I'd like to.
We've discussed the palmettos, if there's an issue, it's okay. All right, let's go to Silver 5.
Is this it?
Maybe it is, I think this is it.
Yeah.
Or is it, no, this is the compact, this is cool.
This is,
All right, this is the compact, this is on Silver 3. And what happens when they put in, according to Jeremy, when they put in the irrigation head, they compact the earth around it, and they compact it 2 or 3 times to make sure it's down nice and tight. So that's what he's doing there with that device, is compacting the soil.
Oh, yeah, right, you can see that header going up and down.
Yeah, like a jackhammer, only with a flat thing on the bottom. So he'll work that area 2 or 3 times to make sure that we don't have loose soil and things aren't shifting. And you'll see they'll fill in a little more soil and compact that down too.
How
No,
far-
I'm looking, wait,
how far
I just want you
apart
to
do
check
they
out
put
this
these
next
heads?
camera move he does here. See how he pulls that?
It's different, it depends on what's there.
Okay.
That's what's nice about having the design specifically for the
Yeah,
golf
okay.
course.
All right, and then the final one should be Silver
this
5.
is Silver 5, yeah.
I think. Yes, it is. So you see now at this, on this one, they're still digging the trenches for the main,
Oh,
so the
okay.
trenches are open here. Although I think farther down, they filled in the trenches on this. This video was shot yesterday, so this is exactly what's going on right now.
Huh.
And you can see that they're.
Did they hit any rocks yet?
We've been very fortunate so far.
And all of this video will be, and more, will be on the website. So if you want to see this again, go to the website and you can see it, you can slow it down, you can look at it in a little more detail.
How many Foxfire people are working as part of their crew?
We have 10, we have two groups of 5. So
Mhm.
10 of our staff are working with that group from GT Irrigation.
I think this is a great example of that, the wise decision that the board had in December to say, let's buy a drone. Jeremy will give us examples of innovative usage of this equipment, this technology for years to come.
Yeah, there's more too. That was only
Oh,
4
there's
files.
so much
Right,
more,
right.
yeah.
And also Green Committee, 2 other things. Oh, when they're out there, they're cleaning out the exotic plants on the new 9 as well and clearing that out. Also, it came up in the Green Committee that there was some concern about the street lights going to the new 9 near Foxmore, that they did not look tidy or clean. So they'd like it referred to the ARC to put that on your agenda to
Will
go
somebody
look
send
at
me
those
a-
streetlights.
Send me an email about that, or will they refer directly to Mike Gallagher? That would be better.
Okay,
Just have them send it to Mike Gallagher, they'll take it up, I'm sure.
okay, we'll do that. And reiterating what Donald said, they've been hand watering the greens, but now in some areas where they've got the irrigation reconnected, they can irrigate them to preserve the greens so that they survive. Oh, not to be ignored. The USDA this year.
Correct.
And we got a pretty glowing review if you.
It was a tribute to Johnson and his staff,
Right.
it's just amazing things they found in there, which was, made me feel good reading.
And then some of the observations that the putting greens are in great condition. There were some recommendations in terms of growth regulators and day-to-day clipping amounts. The improvement to your root system year over year is remarkable. And in terms of the use of working hours and extending the working hours. He said, not many courses I work with have personnel essentially putting all of their time each day and evening into producing this number of rounds without adding people or extending days of closure. He endorses the new practice area. He says money spent improving and expanding the practice areas is a great investment. This was interesting to me in terms of fairways and roughs. Even with the increased use of carts, the single-use carts, the wear on the turf has been minimal, except in high traffic areas on roughs. So that's pretty remarkable. We were a little worried about all of those extra carts spinning out there and tearing up the golf course and putting too much wear on it. It's been minimal.
Well, I think what it shows too is that the enter and exit, the way we do the entering and exit and having people use the fairway as opposed to the rough, we've seen a dramatic difference over the last 3 years. And this especially showed it this year with all these, double the amount of carts up there.
Yeah, that's been astonishing. And he does caution us, if you saw at the end here, when we get all of the new Bimini grass in there and sprig, he said, don't go jumping out there on golf carts and driving all over it. Baby it a little bit, and you may want to stick to cart path only until it's, maybe, he says, roots can take up to a year to fully establish. So just, keep your expectations under control. We may not be driving on this new turf right away.
I just wanted to make a comment. When I was appointed to the board, Donald took Ray and myself on a facilities tour with Jonathan. And I cannot tell you how impressed I was by how his process and procedure, how he keeps the maintenance building and the auxiliary maintenance building. I've been in many facility tours in my business life and my professional life. And his standards that he sets for his employees that work under him really speaks to his respect for what he is taking care of for us here. I mean, everything is pristine. The equipment is clean all the time. It's in its place where it's supposed to be. And I go back to this, there's this one big pipe, which I don't even know what it's for. It's in the back of the auxiliary facility building, and it's painted this beautiful industrial blue color, and it's all clean. And I don't think anybody goes there to look at it, but everything, their bins for all their little, bits and pieces that they have. He just does a phenomenal job. I just want to give a testament to him and his staff and everything they do. And they've really stepped up to the plate here now for the master plan. So I just wanted to say that so that everyone knows.
Chrissy, it's interesting because I saw it from way back when it was before somebody said, let's take a tour, climb over this machine, go over that machine. I did have a question. It's my own personal bugaboo, but because we saved those 12,000 papers from the pool at no cost.
Right.
And because we are worried about wear and tear on Bimini and particularly around the cart paths.
Right.
Has there been discussions of where the potential use of those papers can go?
Yes.
Good.
Okay. Do you want me to tell you? Because I
You
can
can tell
tell
me.
Donald, who I've heard explain this at least 3 times.
Yes, it's good for me, but if you want to
They
try it.
apparently, for what their original use was, they're very brittle and they're very thin. And we don't think that they're appropriate for
At
that
all?
area, but we are going to try them and see if they work.
Double them up.
Double them up.
Yeah,
Yeah, because we have
try
such
them on
pallet.
the corners and do some test sites.
Yeah, that's probably
Because if we can't use them out there, we'll use them someplace else.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
yeah.
Did I get that right?
You did.
Three's the magic number.
Yeah, all right. If you tell me something 3 times, I might remember.
Okay, anything else, Kathy?
I think that's,
Okay, any other committees wish to?
On the finance committee side, finance committee is going to begin some intense budgeting set up in the balance of April and May, so we can hopefully get a budget set for during the month of June, which we want to be able to get to the board to think through in July, and then we will have to pass our budget for the new year.
They're already interviewing other people, and they're on top of the game. We are looking for an additional member for the finance committee. If anyone knows one that might be a candidate, please ask them to submit their application in the office. And I know that Lynn Anderson and her team are looking for a new member. In terms of the House committee, Donald has given us a report already of some of the things that they're working on, so I won't be redundant there. But they too are looking for a new member. We have, and this is probably happening in many of our committees, we've asked members to be available for 5 years, but we're reaching people who have 5 and in some cases 6 years. There's a need for a new member to the House committee. On the social committee, there is also a need for a new member there. Our chairperson, Diane Becker, has done an absolutely spectacular job. She has been on the House committee for 7 years. And she is stepping aside at the end of this year. We already gave her another extension to October. I'd like to suggest that Linda Bryden become the new chair of the social committee. Linda serves on the Green Committee. Last month, we gave an extension or an exception to permit somebody to work on 2 committees, and Linda was one of them. If the board approves, she would be the chair of the social committee, but she would still be a member of the Green Committee. Linda has the background and the knowledge to do this. The social committee itself is unanimous in saying Linda would be the ideal candidate to lead our particular committee. They are working forward 6 and 9 months in advance and getting various bands that are set up. They're proposing new ideas and concepts. They'd love to be able to do a Veterans Day event November 11th, and this is something that this community in particular should probably have been doing for a number of years, being able to recognize veterans within our community, because we certainly have a lot of those great people here. But both those committees are looking for a new member. The insurance committee.
But do we need,
Let's do a motion to appoint Linda Bryden as chair of the social committee and approve the exception of her serving on the second committee.
I will move that this board approve Linda Bryden to be chairperson of the social committee and also approve an exemption for her to serve on 2 committees. The other one being.
I second that. I want to say that I want to acknowledge that we did have a informal policy to try to keep as diverse as possible the number of people on committees, but when we're in a situation where we don't have enough members of the committee and we have a person who's qualified for that job, I think an exemption in this case is more important. Yeah.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. And, would it be possible, or is it desirable to put a list in the Foxtails and on the webpage of committee openings so that?
I think that's in the process right now. Again, the last month has been so
Sure.
topsy-turvy, and we haven't wanted to burden Donald or the staff with items that are perhaps less important that were going on at the time. But that is, over a year or 2 ago, when Chet was chair of the committee, of the communication committee, we were going to have a standing committee fair to address to bring on new members to these committees. But I actually just found all that information, and that is archived from all that. I have all that, but we are going to get that up on the website.
Great.
And I think that, I don't know if, we'll try to put it in Foxtails too. Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
And I think Chad recall, I think he did reach out to all of the committee
He
chairs
did.
already.
Ask
asking
for all that information,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But we can certainly keep following up on that.
Yeah, he's been very proactive with that.
The other committees wish to report.
Yeah, I've got a couple of things to report. The first thing is not necessarily a committee, although it's kind of an informal. I've been working with Donald and some of the people who live in Verandas too, to address a concern along the fence line that borders Foxfire directly opposite Verandas 2 along Foxtail Court. A lot of invasive species and a lot of scrubby brush. And they would like to see that improve. The problem is it's an expensive proposition to do it. And Donald suggested I might bring it up today. I wanted to get it in the budget, but it's a kind of an extraordinary amount that we saw for the first estimate of fixing that up. And we may have to do it in stages. All I wanted, unless there's something else you want to add, I think we're still in the process of trying to sort out if this can be staged and to what extent the people from Verandas 2 want to participate, either by helping or by financing part of this. So I'm still working on that with those people.
Right.
Unless there's any more you want to
Yeah,
add.
no, I would just say, the only thing I would add is that, one of the things that we had laid out several years ago is that we were gonna make efforts to improve all of our perimeters. So we've made a significant investment along Davis Boulevard, along Radio Road, on the inside of Radio Road, along Foxmore, and this area as well. And this particular area, because the neighboring community, there's a lot of overgrowth from them. We can cut back their property line, but we can't get over their property line, and we don't want to get into maintaining, an area that doesn't belong to us,
Right.
for sure. But this is one of those things. This is a large enough area that it certainly should be addressed, but it may have to be something that we do over a period of a couple of years, because the cost for the plant material and the labor over there is fairly significant at first.
About 800 feet of length.
Right.
And it's very dense. That's going to take a fair amount to get it out of there and then to replant that whole area.
Right.
So this is the area at the end of Foxtail Court next to Timberlake? Or is it
Yes,
in-
yes, yeah. So it's
And
along our
so-
fence line.
Yeah,
It's along our
they're on
fence,
the
so it's
other
not
side
the
of the-
Radio Road.
No.
No,
area.
this is,
It's
no,
down
this
north.
is, this goes north and south at that point, and it
Okay.
ends where that beautiful banyan tree is, and
Yes.
there's a pond down there, a cul-de-sac, that's where it ends, and it goes back up Foxtail Court about 800 feet.
Okay,
So I don't know what the budget process is, but if there's enough time left to get a reduced amount in the budget, we may talk to you, Roger.
Well, we can do it but we need to hear what the number, the finance committee is gonna need to know.
Oh, absolutely, and we're not quite there yet, so just want to let you know. Now, I have about
Is this something that needs to go through the strategic planning committee, get on the 10-year rolling plan? Are we talking 25,000 or more?
Oh, it is, it's, yeah, right now.
And then I think, isn't that the process?
I guess, yes, but it's really more of a maintenance item too. So it's one of those things where
Mhm.
it's more of a maintenance. But I mean, we can certainly go through the whole process. There's no question there, but it's really a maintenance item more than anything else. It's just a matter of how we do it. And like I said, if we spend $15,000 one year, $15,000 the next year, that might be the way to do it. I'm not 100% sure yet, but
Yeah, I think it's still a little premature,
Okay.
but I wanted to alert you to it, that's going on. Moving on to the art, we do have a lot to report. We had a meeting yesterday on the art, and we have a number of things that I want to tell you about. And if you, as I go through these, if you flags go up or you get upset or concerned, please let me know. The first thing we talked about was a request from Foxwood. Am I correct? That's the
Yes.
association. They want to replace their roofs on all three of their buildings. They currently have tile up there, and they are one of two buildings, large buildings like that is tile. The other one, I believe, being Foxmore. Correct. But they want to replace it with asphalt shingles. And the reason they want to do that is they have now an offer from their insurance company to correct the Hurricane Irma damage. And the amount that the insurance company has offered them would allow them to replace the roof not with tile, but with asphalt and at the same time, replace all the windows in the place, which is a significant cost, and it make them all hurricane proof and bring them up to code. So they're excited about doing that. The ARC put them through the paces in terms of getting approval. We got a letter from their attorney that they have the sufficient approval to make the change from tile to asphalt. The only remaining hurdle was whether the ARC would approve a change from tile to asphalt. And you recall there are a number of other buildings, one of which I live in, that have asphalt and have always had asphalt.
Is this Foxhaven that we're talking about?
No,
No, Foxwood. Foxwood. We'll get to Foxhaven next.
Yeah, we're coming up to Foxhaven. So it was a matter of some discussion in the ARC about whether this should be done or not. It was several people very, very outspoken that they thought by doing so, they would be diminishing the value of real estate property here at Foxfire by going from a tile roof to an asphalt roof. And on the other hand, there were people who felt, well, a lot of other buildings have asphalt on it. It looks fine. And this is quite a benefit to the people of Foxwood because they can now replace all the windows as well. So ultimately, the vote was 5-3 to permit them to change from tile to asphalt shingles. I wanted to let you know that in case you had any concerns, but right now they're operating on the assumption that they can get the settlement from their insurance company, replace the roof with asphalt shingles. That was the first thing that was done. Then we talked a lot about Foxhaven 1. For those of you who don't know, it's the building with the blue tarp on it. And it has had blue tarp on it for 3.5 years since Hurricane Irma. As you may know, our Declaration of Covenants says that anytime there's damage from a windstorm such as Hurricane Irma, repair must be initiated within 90 days and must be completed within 9 months. It's an absolute rule. And the ARC, apparently nothing's been done to enforce this until we started up this season in the fall. And we started out by asking them to give us some information on why they haven't finished it. Namely, what's the extent of the damage, what reports have you got, what estimates have you got, so that we can understand the scope of the problem. Because the master association under covenants has the right to go in if the work isn't being done by the neighborhood association. We have the right to go in and do it ourselves and receive the insurance proceeds directly from their insurance company and put a lien on the building for anything that isn't covered by insurance. So we were trying to assemble as much information as we could in addition to hearing from them on why this is taking so long. To make a very long story short, they essentially refused to give us anything, except a copy of their insurance policy and a copy of the itemized claim that they had made with their insurance company. They have now sued their insurance company. It is a lawsuit pending here in Collier County. And that lawsuit is not even going to be ready for trial until next year sometime. Probably, in my experience as a litigator, probably won't get tried for another 2 years from now. So they are taking the position until the lawsuit is resolved, they don't want to do anything to the roof. And I could give you the reasons, most of which I think, in my opinion, weren't valid. They weren't legally valid. They were trying to preserve the evidence. So you preserve the evidence by taking pictures, and no jury is going to go up and look at that roof. But anyway, so the question was whether the ARC would permit this thing to continue, would recommend to the board that it take some action, or what. The people from Foxhaven 1 did actually come to our board meeting yesterday. We had 2 of their members, the president and one of their board members was at the meeting, and their attorney was there. A fellow from Tampa named George Root was down, and a representative of the management company that works with Foxhaven. We're all here. And they told us that they're going to mediate this case in June. Well, mediation is a non-binding hope of getting it settled. I'm not confident about that because the insurance company has taken the position that the damage to the roof is within their deductible, and they haven't offered them anything. Their deductible being about $63,000. And the Fox Haven, I think, wants something in the area of $1 million. It's a huge gap between what they want and what I could tell you, I apologize, I don't have it with me right now, but it's a very large number and they're very far apart. So they're gonna mediate it in July, except for a non-binding arbitration by December. And again, it's a non-binding thing. So if that doesn't resolve a voluntary settlement, they'll have to actually go to trial. And as I said, that maybe 2 years from now. They don't want to do anything now with that roof until it either is settled or goes to trial. A lot of people on the ARC are concerned that this has lasted 3.5 years. It's unsightly, and it looks like it might continue for another year or two, realistically. So what was done after a lot of discussion was they offered to paint the tarp to match the roof. And we said, our committee said that would be okay, do it right away. And if we will give you until the end of June, which is when it's supposed to be mediated, and we want you to paint it between now and then. And we want you to come back after the mediation and let us know where things stand, how close you are to getting this resolved. The ARC decided not to take any further action at this point, but expects them to paint the tarp, which they gave us an estimate for. It'll be $2,100 to paint it. So they said they would do that.
Are they alleging damage beyond
Sure.
just replacing
Yeah,
it?
but they won't give us any reports. All I know is the damage claim is one line item from a construction company of about $909,000. It isn't broken down, but it's obviously more than the roof. It may be, more than the shingles. It may be rebuilding the roof, and I think they're also claiming all the windows and doors need to be replaced. So our concern is solely the roof. That's the appearance that's troubling a lot of people. So that's where it stands now. The ARC had said, come back and talk to us after the end of June. In the meantime, paint it. So that's where things
I'm
stand.
curious, with the tarp up there, how secure is the building? Not in terms of crime, but in terms of future.
We're
Heavy
all
storms.
concerned about that. There's some speculation on the ARC, but see, we don't know that tarp is maybe leaking water into the attic area, in which case mold could be growing up there.
Exactly.
And compromise the whole building. And they don't seem to know the answer to that. They don't report water leakage into the units. So I guess that's one good sign, but there may be water leaking into that rafters area that would be growing mold. We don't know that.
But Jim, it's interesting. Foxwood got a settlement on their roof, which didn't have a tarp on it because it's still active. And they're replacing the roof and their windows with their insurance claim. And Foxhaven has tarps because of damage, and they're not getting anything. I just thought that was interesting when you compare the two.
And one of the things I
Maybe
wrote to
something-
Ray about is that the President's Council might want to consider sharing information on their insurance companies, because I think it's fair to say that the Foxhaven people are very upset with their insurance company and not being treated fairly.
Coverage.
I can't tell you whether that's true or not, but I do know that's how they feel. And that information, if shared between communities, might be helpful.
Actually, it's going to happen. Just not step what you're saying. But Bruce McAndrews isn't available for the next meeting in September, but in November he's going to attend and offer his as he said, I'm not a guru, but I can give you an answer, and he will be there at the November meeting to answer any questions from the President's Council.
Who is their insurer?
One thing real quick, just
Sure.
the manager that was there yesterday was there on behalf of Foxwood. So the manager was there on behalf of Foxwood, not Foxhaven. It's a management company.
It was Foxwood's manager was
Right.
there to talk about
Right,
the roofing
right,
issue. The insurance company is Heritage Property and Casualty Insurance Company. The next thing we talked about, and the ARC is finally, after like a hiatus of about 2 years, not doing much, they're starting to fire up on a lot of different jets. The next thing they talked about were patios. A number of we're not talking about single family homes here, we're talking about the villas and some of the multi-story buildings. People are starting to put patios out there, presumably with the approval of their local association. The ARC has had a rather checkered history, and usually I think what it boils down to is they haven't really gotten involved in patios, although the ARC clearly has jurisdiction over patios and what they ought to be allowed. After discussing the issue of patios at length, the ARC finally decided that they were going to put out in foxtails and by email the fact that they have put a moratorium on approval of any new patios until they can establish standards for the patios: size, landscaping, screening, maintenance, setbacks, all of those standards, which are apparently, as far as we know, non-existent right now. And as a result, there's been a catch-as-catch-can about what kind of patios are going up. Some of them look very nice, some of them are average looking.
Some of them are kind of.
Yeah. So the ARC is, I think, going to start exercising jurisdiction over that, as they have the right to do, but they want to make some standards, and to the extent anyone is now seeking approval, which they technically must from the ARC to put in a patio, the ARC will not be granting any approvals until those standards are developed. And they have appointed a subcommittee to do that.
Do they have an objective as to the amount of time that before they have the standard set?
My guess is it'll be 2 to 3 months. Judging by the fact that he's going to be on, we're all kind of moving on right now, but that's the goal, I believe, they have. I think our next meeting will be in about, I think they set the next meeting for 30 days from now. Those standards probably will not be done by then, but I would expect they'd be done.
And it can't be retroactive.
No.
Once it's in,
Right.
you can't have somebody.
Yeah, if someone put in a patio without getting approval from the ARC,
Well,
there might be some basis there, but I'm not going to speculate on whether that would be appropriate politically or appropriate legally. I'm just not going to get into that.
Yeah.
But right now, certainly going forward, we want to make some standards.
Can I ask about mailbox colors?
Yeah, that was next on my list.
Good.
Mailbox. Handwriting here. Yeah, okay, yeah. The mail, right, this is the next one on my list. They have arrived at a conclusion on what color the mailboxes should be, and it is dark hunter green, as that is expressed on the Rust-Oleum can. There may be other dark hunter greens, but we're talking about Rust-Oleum. And they're going to put out some directive that probably within a year from now, everyone should start thinking about redoing their mailboxes with the whole, maybe 2 years from now, everybody's mailbox will be dark hunter green. There was some talk, and I suspect they will do that we will recommend buying a couple of cases of it and stocking it in one of the maintenance facilities for people to just come and take a can, spray paint it dark hunter green. And then
So this is spray, this is not.
well, you can do it either way.
You
It
can do
comes in a liquid form, and it comes in a spray. The spray being obviously much easier, probably either. But that's where they're going on mailboxes. But that is not. They just arrived at a color. They haven't yet talked about how to roll out the implementation of this. And then, there was some. There was some talk about trucks, pickup trucks in driveways, and you and I had a conversation there. Apparently, even though the bylaws or the declaration covenants say that pickup trucks may not be sitting out in a driveway, they have to be totally closed in a garage. But the board passed a policy 5 years ago or so, I think they said, that allowed pickup trucks to sit in driveways, and now, so I get that kind of ended that conversation.
Well, there's specific requirements. They have to be capped. They have to have a rear, windows in the rear. They can't have any lettering on the side.
Oh, okay.
They
Right.
might be commercially used.
Right.
Do we have that published anywhere?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You do, okay, very good. Well, I won't bother you anymore. That was That was about all it was about 2 hours actually of time spent with the art committee. The legacy fund, I will tell you, we received a number of very generous contributions already to the legacy fund. And 2 people in this room are responsible for those.
Are they sitting next to you?
They are both, I don't want to name names, but they're both.
Okay.
Very, very, very generous contribution.
Thank you.
And what the legacy fund right now is kind of struggling with is how to differentiate itself from the memorial fund, which is confusing to the minds of most of our members as well. And we as a legacy fund can't quite come to an agreement on that. So what we've decided to do is I'm going to host a meeting. And Mary Bills and I, she's the chairman of the committee, and I'm the liaison, with the memorial fund, Len McClay, who's their chairman, and Mark Schwab, who's their liaison. They're coming over Sunday night, and we're going to see if we can thrash this out and get this straightened out, so that we can go forward each in our own separate ways or merge the two. I remember we talked when I first proposed the legacy fund about whether it ought to absorb the memorial fund. And it was a 3-3 vote, but the decision was to keep them 2 separate committees. We're struggling with that now because there's obviously a lot of overlap and trying to differentiate it. We're going to take a crack at finding a clear way to differentiate it, and if we can't, we're also going to take a crack at maybe merging the 2, or at least coming back and recommending that we merge.
One thing I suggest that you keep in mind is what is the intent of the donor? So does the donor just want, some flowers or a fountain or, a bench, or does the donor want, whatever the donor's intention are? I don't think you should overrule.
Oh, we haven't at all. Anybody who donates to the legacy fund, for example, if they say, I want this to be put toward a bench, and if it's not enough to cover the cost of the bench, we will not accept it on that basis because we can't guarantee them it will go toward a bench. But if we as a committee say, we're going to establish a bench and name it after so-and-so, will you contribute to it because the cost of it will be $4,000? That we can do, and that any donor who wants to give to that bench can do it. If somebody says, I want a bench and I'm willing to pay the $4,000 for it, and as long as you put my family name on the back, we will do that. And so, but the problem is somebody wants to give $500 to in memory of Pam Cannon. Where does it go? And some people say, yeah, but I want, because the family wanted us to start a fund for Pam, us, the legacy fund, to start a fund, which we did. And then some people said, well, they're taking money away from the memorial fund. Well, the family asked us to do this, so we're setting up we haven't decided what we're going to spend it on. If we're going to spend it on maybe the yoga studio after Pam or whatever we decide to do with however much money comes in. But we have all those identification problems to go through. And
I'm thinking of the average donation that comes into the memorial fund. People don't really know where it goes.
No, it's our unrestricted donations.
It's a gesture, and
right. Yeah. So like I said, we're trying to create our separate identities, and we'll keep going at it Sunday night, and I hope to have a successful report for you.
Strategically, you probably want more unrestricted for legacy as well, because you don't want to have individuals picking specific projects, and then you have this all over,
Right.
We're thinking we were going to put up a plaque, in honor of those people who gave different levels of money to it. So that would be the recognition we would give them. We're working on that right now. But yeah, you're right. And then we'd also like to be able to say, well, I don't know if it's true or not, Pam liked flowers. And so we're going to create a big flower bed with a fountain in the center. We're going to name it the Pam Cannon Garden. And it's going to cost us $15,000. Who wants to donate money for that? And that's one of the things we should be doing. That's the function of this committee, among other things. But if somebody wanted to come along and say, I want a Donald Shea garden, I'm willing to pay $15,000. We might do it. So, let me know. Okay, that's the rules committee. Nothing to do, so nothing to report on the rules.
Any other committee reports?
Well, golf comes on the list, so I'll do it. And I don't have to say as much because you all get a copy of the minutes. By the way, they're done by Martha Field, and I have to tell you, I sit in the meeting and then I read what she writes and I say, I don't even have to sit in the meeting because she does a tremendous job of understanding what people say that I don't understand. But that's okay.
She's a terrific resource for the community.
And she is,
Just
and she
throw
is.
that out.
And there's two items, and one of them, and really it's one item, and it comes down to the lack of tea times availability. So that caused an uproar. We talked about it at the last meeting. There's a subcommittee, Margie Murphy heads it up with a few people. And two things came out of it, one of which is resolved, and that is Chelsea. Because the Chelsea system on our website shows us tea times that are available individually or for two people. But we have to we as members go to the pro shop and say, can I get a tea time? Stephen had mentioned that we're in process of incorporating that so that it becomes an automated system. We have the iPads, which I think were approved back in January. So I'll just say that we're moving towards getting that into a logical way so that people who are being shut out from tea times can at least play golf, perhaps not with the group they want to play with, but it becomes available.
So you're saying you can go through the Chelsea system and add your name to an existing?
Yeah, we actually seen it used in other clubs.
Okay.
Bob Dixon was the example that showed me, and he went through his club up in North Carolina. And you can physically go in and see perhaps three ladies, practically you might want to
Yeah.
play just with ladies.
Right. Just
And
add
you
my
would
name.
add your name in, you know the people, put it in, the pro shop gets it. When it comes time for a starter, the starter has the iPad, they can look and see in real time the changes as opposed to dealing in papers and sheets and writing it down. That's the goal, and it's proceeding towards that point, so we'll leave it at that.
Mhm.
The other part to this though, and that's the issue of how many tea times are available, and the thought that perhaps it was because of the tenants that getting involved, that members were being shut out. There is a spreadsheet that's been developed. You haven't seen it for a reason that I think it needs to be cleaned up, and we all agree that it would be done one more month of time would get us to a better point. But it comes back to an earlier discussion we had about rental issues. And I'll just give you this one bit of information. When you look at the transfer fee that was studied over 12 different communities, we are in fact nearly the lowest. Royalwood has $200. Everybody is between $300 up to $500. So to go back to the point earlier, Bill, that was made about my researching information with the President's Council, I would think that I would include someone from the golf committee on that committee, along with a few other people, because I think the recommendations that the golf committee is working on will work very well into the other rental issues. And it should all be packaged into one neat little item rather than having some loose ends.
Right.
And there's other things incorporated into what they found, and I'll just give you two quick points to whet your appetite. One is that in more than 50% of the clubs, these were bundled communities that they studied, there was a starting point for the renters of so many plays so that they didn't start with zero. That'll be studied. And the other part to it was, I lost my train of thought as I said that.
This is Chelsea points.
Right, and there's even some creative ideas being thrown out with regards to green cards and members and rates and whatever. So they're gonna come back and give you some hard new thoughts to think about. And if we can incorporate that into whatever policy we do with the renters, hopefully it puts us in a position where, and this is the key statement, that Foxfire is now considered to be a best community rather than a community trying to participate. I use the example that if we took 15 clubs in this area, we shouldn't be at the bottom rung of our charges. We should be, because of our, just our club alone, but also our $10 million worth of expenditures that we're gonna have. We should be at least in a 75% or higher percentile in what we're charging for our services. And I think we need to do that, but that'll come out of this study.
It sounds to me as though you have approached this problem with the preconception that renters are prohibiting members from getting preferred tea times. Is that correct? Because I'm not sure
The
that's true.
perception is
The perception
that the
is.
renters are using up tea times that could go to owners.
And
There will be owners in this community that will say that the owner should have first priority across the board, and then what's available should be given to the renters.
my understanding was that renters used about 8 or 9% of the tea times during the season.
The study that I saw, that on a typical day, they were running about 34 to 40 rounds of golf per day were renters. So
Okay.
that would be about 10%.
That'd be about 10%.
Yeah, and you wouldn't think it would be that significant, Kathy, and I looked at it the same way, that it doesn't appear that way. However, now you get into the fact that somebody who is a renter and who has no place can also get to the point, excuse me, where they may be getting the ideal tea times, because their choices are gonna go to the top of the list in Chelsea, because they don't have the play list that the owners have.
Okay, all I'm suggesting is, rather than assuming that that's the problem, that you look into it a little more and find out when are the renters getting these tea times? Is that correct?
Well, as I said to you,
Or are we getting afternoon tea times because
I
our
understand.
spouses?
I would say we're assuming, I just said I gave you the highlights.
Yeah,
There's background data that I haven't given you yet, because we're gonna make everything complete.
Okay.
But this all comes down to the same point of what came up earlier, which is, it's our community, we are renting, but we're not a rental community. So we have to find an equitable way of making this
all
work.
right, well, just be careful with your preconceptions, because we are a rental community. And there are
No, we're a
people-
homeowners community, I disagree there.
Okay, but, all right. so
What's being
this is very-
transferred?
Pardon me?
What's being transferred? It's the owner's right to use the club, right?
Actually, there's two, Bill, to be honest with you. The first one is the full transfer, and that's taking the owner's rights to the common, it's called club common area in the documents, and it's being given to the renter, or tenant is out to the
The
trade.
renter is paying for it. Renter is paying,
Well, the renter
to
is
assume
paying
the privileges
200,
of the owner.
the renter is paying, what, $255, $255 for that right, or they're paying $55 to not have the golf rights.
Mhm.
Which, quite frankly, you can tell whether a renter, a
Yeah.
tenant under that social membership is using your driving range, or you can't even tell right now fully whether they're out there at 5 o'clock at night playing golf. That's part of the issue, but let's forget that for the time being. To your point is, there is a transfer there, absolutely. But the point is, if it's an illegal transfer, it's even a bigger issue, right? So you just gotta look at all of the things that are happening.
I guess what I'm sort of thinking is that if I assume Pappy's rights and she has 6 Chelsea points,
Right.
why don't I just start with 6 Chelsea points? If she has no Chelsea points, I start with no points. I mean, I'm assuming her privileges.
What happens if, and just to play devil's advocate, we're using Pappy as a renter. In January, she rents to one person. In February, she rents to a different person. And how do you assume that?
Well, if at the beginning of February, she's got no Chelsea points, she's got no Chelsea points.
But they would have no Chelsea points. You mean the previous renter, or Chelsea, or the renter of the property?
Either the owner or the tenant.
Yeah, that's what I'm, that's my question.
Well, I guess, yeah, to be consistent, you'd have to say whatever points are on that account is what the new renter is assuming.
So somebody new comes in, they have their brand new here, they're paying $4,000 a month for a unit, and now they start out with 10 Chelsea points, or if the previous tenant is an avid golfer and so is his or her spouse.
Do they each get a new member number one?
They do get a new
That's where I'm gonna go
That's one
with
of the
this.
things I think.
Yeah.
You'd have to research.
So
you'd have to-
they're starting with a clean slate because they're getting a new member.
Well, what he's suggesting is not a clean slate that they would
I
carry
I
out.
understand that, but right now, they get the clean
So,
slate.
yeah,
Yeah.
because to go back and assign, unless you come up with a standard, but to go back and to assign each account, okay,
Right.
oh, well, that person's leaving on February 27th, what was our play count, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now you go on, you don't want to be manual, but if you do something like some clubs do, where you start you start a tenant with an average play count.
Mhm.
You could use just what the average play count is for that week. You could just say, okay, this is February 1st, the average play count of everyone that got a tea time was 3.5.
Mhm.
And use that as a standard.
That's right.
Then then it really does create more of a level. If you start doing it the other ways around, you're gonna,
That's the issue.
but that would be probably.
And in fact, some clubs even go to the extent that if you're a tenant, your play count is 1.5 and an owner is 1. So there's all different
Yeah,
variables.
yeah.
That has to be,
Yeah.
that spreadsheet will be cleaned up, so you can see.
I just want to make two,
Sure.
since we're on this tough subject, just want to make two real quick points. One of the items that has to be considered is that the makeup of the groups is the fact that a lot of tenants play with a lot of our members. So it's not as though you have 4 tenants who are taking up 10% of the tee times, because they're not playing in threesomes and foursomes solely. They're playing as part of, Roger's group or Dr. Cornell's group or tenants. I mean, so there you have that mix there. And so when you start considering these policies, that's one of the things that has to be considered, because, well, if a renter can't play then,
The whole group is.
the whole group could get bumped up. Or you have a policy that is, one of the options is you look at a policy that says, okay, well, these are the 10 weeks when we have kickouts. It's from January 15th through March 31st. Here are the 10 weeks. You give members first right to tea times, and any group of tenants, can sign up the day later or 4 hours or whatever it might be. They can still apply from the same time, but the first run of tea times, when you process that day, would go strictly for members, and then all the tenants would be filled in after that. So there's a number of different ways.
Sure, Donald, and I agree with you, and there's 2 other points to that. One, if you did have the Chelsea system where they can go in automatically, that would help the tenants. The other thing that has to be remembered, we have a higher play count right now, and I think this is an assumption, because we have so many new members, and they're probably a little bit younger in age, and because of COVID, they probably came down during these seasons, that they're probably higher percentage of golfers there. And now they're in residence in Foxfire, and they have taken up tee times that would not have been available, would have been available in, say, 2020 or earlier. I think that's another consideration.
Sure.
So you gotta look at the whole picture. So that's what the golf committee is gonna do. And they're gonna come back, and again, I say it, and I think some of this has to be incorporated into the thinking about the rental issues, because it's all gonna play in. You might as well have a nice, neat package.
And would you include in there the numbers on how much we earn through food and beverage and the pro shop?
I'll give you a number. You want an interesting number?
I'm saying.
I'll give you the number. Our revenue number, it came from Stu Burkett and from Lynn Anderson, who were at the golf meeting, is about $200,000. 150,000 rough comes from golf, 50,000 from transfer fees. That's what we get in the way of revenue
From renters.
from tenants,
Okay.
which is a real interesting number, because if you really want to think outside the box, if we raise the maintenance fees by $200, we would recover that revenue through another method. Not that I'm suggesting it,
Right.
but it's just interesting to note that that's the contribution, not food and beverage.
Food and beverage is not included.
No. But
But
I
just be careful of unintended consequences. If you start discouraging tenants from playing by increasing their Chelsea points or increasing transfer fees, there are consequences.
Sure.
And it's not just that we get more tee times.
I agree there's consequences. I
It's
also,
administrative in
Yeah.
nature.
Yeah.
How does the board members feel about if I said to the finance committee when they're making a budget, you can look at changing around the transfer fee. 1 month rentals are $250. If it's 2 months rental, it's $400. If it's a 3 month rental, it's $500. So you're giving the longer term
person there, and in the process, we capture extra revenue that may be needed down the road.
That's perfectly reasonable.
I can give you a bit of information because we did speak to one of the realtors, Patty DeVicci, about exactly that. I'm reading from the notes. Reported, and this is Margie talking, she reported that they spoke to Patty, who's an owner and also a realtor. Patty did not think that the recommended changes would negatively affect her tenants. We're talking about regards to transfer fees. Okay, so that was.
You know, if I'm renting for 3 months and I'm paying $12,000 and a couple $100 is incidental.
Yeah,
Especially if you're an active golfer.
Sure.
But I think it also, I think that same statement though supports what is really true, and that is the tenants are not the ones taking up the tee times. But just as an example, in March alone, just as a quick thing, in March alone, excluding merchandise sales, tenant green fees and card fees made up about 25% of golf revenue,
Mhm.
just in March alone. So just as
So you
a,
don't have to start messing with
but
it
but again, it's one of those
unless
things
you
where,
understand what the consequences
but
are.
I agree it all has to be studied and put together in one big package.
We'll do it intelligently, I'm sure.
All right, but just keep an open mind and don't start from the assumption that we're not getting tee times because renters are taking them. That is not necessarily the starting point.
I think what happens here is not to belabor this, but I think that if everything gets put into place, I think what will happen is the people who want to play, 5 times a week rather than 4.5 times a week, I don't think it's going to really impact their ability to play that much.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that any of these changes are a bad thing. I mean, I think we have to look at the whole package, but ultimately, just based on the numbers. So, but we have to look at the whole thing and make the best recommendation.
I think the impact is this. Groups that are more than 12 people that want to play together are probably victims of what the concern is here.
Mhm.
And it's simply because there's such a large group.
Maybe that group should say, we're not gonna take any renters. I'm one of those groups,
Right, no, I understand, but I'm just saying that I think.
and I don't wanna say that.
Yeah, but my point is, I think that's one of the principal reasons why the shutouts, and of course, when you have 24 people playing together and you all get shut out,
Right.
it
Sure.
builds
Oh,
up
yeah,
the
sure,
conversation,
sure, sure.
right?
I think- but I
Then
think-
we get into the weeds and we start, when it's Barbara, we don't put her name in and we put in a ghost. Or say it's a guest, and
Yeah.
because we know that you and Barbara play a lot.
Well,
and that you
There's a
don't
lot of
want
people
to-
happy.
Nothing personal, Barbara. Love you.
All right, well, anyway, that's the story. The only other thing that I was gonna bring up, and I'm gonna stop, totally unrelated. We did talk earlier about minutes. I guess I'm the secretary for the President's Council. If anybody wants to have that added in here, so we make sure the committee or the group meeting gets published, I can certainly send it into the office and I can supply it from the one and only meeting we've ever had.
I would like that.
Okay, I will do that. Linda, I'll send it to you later. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other committee reports?
Oh, yes, there's me. The Communications Committee, I distributed this Foxfire website design contact process that Chad emailed to the committee chairs and the board members. So over the last 2 years, the Communication Committee has been continually building, editing, and improving the Foxfire website, with the goal being to provide members a source of accurate information, which they, need here at Foxfire. I'd like you to discuss this. I'd like the liaisons to discuss this with their individual committees that they're liaisons to, in terms of understanding, streamlining the process for requests for changes or additions or creating information for their standing committee on the website. We are establishing this new process because we don't want the office to be inundated with requests for changes, information. That's not the place to go. And so Kathy O'Brien and Faye Moy have are now in charge of all requests from all standing committees for any updates, editing, anything that they want added to their standing committee page under community governments on the website. And as Chad states, changes are welcome but may require a conversation or meeting to ensure clarity. And it's not something the office or Nina should be responsible for. It is the communication committee's responsibility to build that. This process, we feel, will result in an efficient process and procedure for changes and updates. And Kathy and Faye, after consultation with the committees which request updates, will then work with the staff to update the information. We're trying to, again, streamline how we come from concept to implementation. Are there any questions or comments on that? No, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Chad,
Taffy wants to make sure, when you get to the lighting, she just wants to make sure she's in here when you start that portion of your.
okay, yes, I'm not on there yet.
Okay, good,
Okay.
very good.
Okay, channel 195, 196. So the original purpose of channels 195, 196 was to provide information for our members as to golf, tee times, events at Foxfire, et cetera. Since then, communication has evolved through the use of technology. Back in May of last year, Chad researched viable options to improve the quality of the transmission of content on these two channels. The goal was to use channel 196 for transmission of board meetings or other videos of interest to members. For instance, we would have put up like the videos we just showed of the golf course. We consulted with Foxfire's website provider, DSI, and other consultants. They did extensive analysis and provided recommendations for solutions. On their recommendation, we ordered a modulator. After installation of the modulator, it was determined that there was no significant improvement and it was returned. And Donald was involved in all this, and I know he was as frustrated as we were with it. Channels 195, 196 are Comcast lines, and they are analog lines that were installed many, many years ago. They do not support digital content. The information that is presented on channels 195, 196 is posted on the Foxfire website already on Chelsea and other events calendars. In addition, members receive emails regarding all of this. It seems like a redundancy of effort. It is not a good use of the time of the staff to continue to support these channels, and it's not an efficient use of communication. The picture is blurry, pixelated at times, and difficult to read due to poor quality of the analog lines. Therefore, the recommendation of the Communications Committee is to phase out broadcasting content on channel 195, 196 by the end of the year. Comments and questions?
I would agree on phasing out. I'm not sure end of the year. I think there's still people who depend on it.
We're talking about this timing of tea times, and we're talking about XYZ member passed away this month. We're talking about eliminating meals that might be available.
Well, we're only eliminating it on the TV channels. It is
That's
on the
what I mean.
website. It does go out by email. It is in the foxtails.
Okay.
And so, you know, and I have not put a time frame on what time the office staff devotes to this in order to make it happen. You know, I think Linda or Stella or Galena or Nina could certainly speak more intelligently to that than I. And I know that Kathy and Chad have made extensive efforts to try to help everyone do this more efficiently.
So what would the content become on 195 and 196?
It would just go away. It would no longer exist. It's only an analog line. We cannot even upload digital content onto those lines. And we're not going to invest time and money into updating those lines because it's not how we communicate these days. And I know that, it's been said that everyone seems to have it on their TV station and they listen to the music or the radio station that's on there. I would challenge, someone to let me know how many people that is, who will this affect? And I know change is hard. Change is very hard, but we have changed over the last 20 years of how we communicate with each other.
There's no question about it. And I'm not advocating that we even need the 195, 196. My only experience with it is dealing with an elderly family member and her friends who all watch that.
It's exactly, that's true. They do.
And they religiously watched it.
Yeah.
They religiously said, wow, this is good music, or gee, I didn't know so-and-so who used to be here passed away. And it was an information source for them.
And
So that was probably the larger
Yeah.
users of the content.
well, I understand, but I think our point is that it's not a viable vehicle anymore. We could certainly continue to do it, and the staff can continue to, upload that information. I don't know what it takes for them to get the tea times up there or all the flyers that go up there. But we feel if we want to move forward eventually, this is going to have to go away.
Well, we could,
If we're down the road, our president wants to do a podcast. We're going to teach Bill that before he gets out of this office.
But it won't be on those stations.
It's not going to be on those stations.
It cannot.
We're going to stream it on.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's where it's at. It's live streaming
All
today.
right, I think to Mrs. Safarian's point, and because 195 or 196, like for example, like the tea time,
Right.
that's just a copy of a file. That's boom, boom. That's no time at all. But if we're going to use 196 for advertisements, then we certainly don't want to put anywhere near the content that we're publishing on the website or in the emails. If we're using that television station at all, it should be a very simple font, very basic information that doesn't change. It should be our hours of operation, but that's not where people go to find the menus of this or that. I think they should all be very standard, same font, few characters, because that's when you're gonna get the clarity, because that's what the issue we run into is we're trying to put a really nice flyer on 196 and it can't handle that.
It doesn't handle it, and it looks terrible.
We tried all kinds of things
Yep.
with the video.
Jump through hoops to make it happen.
And that didn't work, but the use of that so you can cover all the bases would be to say, okay, well, here are the 5 most important things in the standard format that's pretty much two-tone, less than 30 characters or whatever it might be, and that's what's on there,
And the music will continue.
And the music continues.
So it'd be very static information,
Right.
not continually
Right.
changing information, just static information. And, and again, we're paying for those lines. It's not like,
It's part of our bulk bundle.
It's part of our
agreement,
bulk
So they
agreement,
actually, that's one of the things that they, provide.
Right.
as part of- But ultimately, to try to use it for what we'd like to use it for,
it's not gonna
it's
happen.
not gonna happen. But if we use it in that fashion, where it's very simple, and we set that expectation, it's static information, it's there,
if we did what Donald suggests, would that eliminate the burden on our staff?
absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
well, that's the goal here, really.
It really is the goal. It
So
really is.
why don't
It's-
Why don't we do that
Let's do that.
That'd be fine.
and maintain it for a period of a year and see what happens? and
Exactly.
pick it
Yeah,
up
and,
again a year from
and
now.
I think that's a good way to go. I mean, I said to the end of the year, this is April, so, but I think eventually, it will lose its relevance altogether.
But-
And,
we've saying, I do agree with you, okay, with 196, but on 195, if it's an easy upload, I'm not sure, how would we find out who else is playing with us or who's at a specific time? Because if you look at it, it scrolls, you can see Taffy Phillips. Okay, Taffy's playing this time, this date, I didn't know.
you can't see it on Chelsea?
You can see it on Chelsea. You can look me up and see when I'm playing.
But if you've got 195 available and it's a very easy upload, who cares? That's my point.
Is that upload automatically?
The guys just do a little transfer, file transfer.
That's my point.
It is, what, it's like 30-second transfer? Is that all it takes?
I'd have to ask them, haven't done it in
Or
years.
if it's
but,
not any
you know,
burden on them, I mean, then.
But
then
the
let's keep doing it. People are
channel, the channel
relying on this.
195, I mean, and again, it's pretty much just it's a file, and
Right.
there it is. But again, I think, I agree, I think that the idea is that if you wean members off of it, you keep static information there, you know, because there's gonna be people who only will go to the television to see what their tea time is. But there's gonna be a few people, not a lot of people, most people are gonna go to Chelsea for that. Plus, if we start doing like we talked about, being able to update T-sheet yourself, so you can put yourself in a group, that's gonna be right there. But for us to come up with 5 slides, including, and have one of them say, for more information, go to www.
Exactly. I mean, I would recommend very simple, static, 2-color slide, you know, whatever it supports. And because, I mean, it's difficult to even, I can't even see what's
Right.
scrolling. I don't understand it.
Right, and it just.
I don't understand it.
Right, and that's why I think it's just gonna be very simple.
Yeah, so
A few
196, you know, I would say in the short term, that's a good solution. But I think, you know, long term, we do need to have a plan
Absolutely.
for it because it's not viable.
Well, I think the long term is what you said, is that you completely wean everybody off of it. In the
Right.
meantime, rather than have it look like a disaster, clean it
It's
up,
embarrassing.
you know, clean it up, put a few important things on there. So, you know, if members like that station, they still have access to it.
And I can't imagine that new members that are buying into our community now, that's where they're gonna go for their information. I mean,
Right.
I see much younger people, you know, moving in, and this is where they're going for all their stuff, you know? So we'll table that until January of next year. Let's revisit it.
Oh, I'm saying start that now.
Yeah,
I think.
No, I mean, yeah,
Oh,
let's
yeah.
start that,
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
sure.
but,
Okay.
yeah, but not do all the other uploads that we've been doing.
Oh, yeah, cut off all the uploads now.
Yeah,
Cut them all off and let's make 5 clean slides that
Yeah.
make sense.
yeah, and just keep it very
96,
static.
sure.
Roll.
okay, we all agreed that.
Yeah, okay,
And we'll
yes.
institute
A lot of
that
conversation
immediately.
about that.
Okay.
And in the meantime, I'm gonna reach out to people who I know watch it all the time and say, how badly impacted are you going to be? I mean, maybe, you know, check your elderly friends and see.
And where else
Really
could they go
did a
to
search
get the information?
information, found it.
You know, let's direct them another place. We want to talk about the directory too, if I could just move on very quickly here. It's getting to be a long meeting. We've talked about, you know, in the past, the directory's been printed and distributed in the spring. This year, we've not done that because of everything that's going on. You know, we may or may not do that this year, not sure. You know, it has all the contact information, it has policies and procedures, it has valuable information. Our goal is to start transitioning, well, obviously the whole member roster is already up on the website, and that is constantly current because when new members come on board, the staff puts them into the website and their information's there, and it's continually updated. The minute you print that directory, all that member contact information is almost obsolete from the time you print it. There's a large cost to printing and distributing the directory. We would like to look at a 5-year plan where we start thinking about reimagining what the directory will be, and maybe it won't be a directory of sorts, maybe it'll just be a policies and procedures brochure that we give out to members. But it is our goal and intention that everything that's in that directory will be on the website so that it's available to you, you know, at any time. You don't have to look for your book and stuff like that. That's the direction we're going. Again, you know, as we say here on this memo that Chad sent out, you know, we want the website to be a timely source of accurate information here at Foxfire. And we think that that information is very, very important to have on the website.
You're gonna overtake Google.
I'm sorry?
Nothing out there, but.
Are we going to sell shares?
No, I think that's a good idea to get everything that's in that directory.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I don't know what the cost is, and, you know, I know that Donald has these file folders and has all that information. But I know it's a considerable cost. I've heard that number once before.
Well, with regard to the directory, one of the things I was gonna mention was that, as far as publishing it, I think at the minimum, we would want to, if we do publish the directory as it is, as we have in the last several years, my recommendation is that we wait until the fall. And one of the reasons why I say that and not publish, because number one, we've had so many changes of ownership
Yeah.
over the past few months, that by the time we print it,
Yeah,
again, it's gonna be that much more out of date.
exactly, but that's the point.
Right, right, and so,
Yeah.
with regard to the fact that the roster is on the website, I think reformatting it in a way where it's, like, we did some time ago, we did a kind of a small calendar, where you might do a calendar of events, a really nice calendar of events, where you have all the policies and procedures, and not necessarily
Yes.
have this thing that's basically they printed out of date.
But, I have now had members say, well, I can't find the policy for procedures for smoking on the website. So, see, we're so proactive now in pointing people there that now they're going there and they expect to see all that there. And we're struggling to make sure that we get everything up there.
And I wonder how much of that dropped off when we did the transition, because I know when we first rebooted the website,
Mhm.
I think that when we did that 2 years ago, all the policies and procedures were on there for each department. And then, like I said, when we redid the website this
Right.
past year, I don't know how much of that didn't get translated and so on and so forth.
And
But-
that's on our list of things
Yeah,
to get
sure,
up there,
sure.
I mean, there's just not enough hours and days and people to get it all done.
Mhm.
But anyway, that's what we're thinking about moving forward, and we're just gonna, again, reimagine what that will look like into the future. But so people know, though, they can look up any member here at Foxfire under member roster. And anyway, and I encourage everyone, go look at your information on the member roster, see if it's accurate. We're going to go on to this packet of equipment purchase request that I have for lighting and microphone and cable. When this whole thing started with COVID and, we went to Zooming our board meetings, we sort of fell into it. We used equipment we had. And we're trying to really improve the quality of our transmission of these board meetings and hopefully forums into the future. And so with the help of Taffy and her former cameraman Glenn, who is also a member here, suggested this equipment, one of which is a microphone, which will really help with the audio for our board meetings where we won't have to be, the members will be able to hear us better, and there's a cable connection. And so these were recommendations that Glenn and Taffy made. And Taffy, would you like to speak to this?
Yeah, I'm very happy with the light kit. I think that's gonna help us a lot. The microphone, we looked this up, and the cardioid means that it's got a 180 range. It's not an omnidirectional range. So we would set it there and it would get 180 degrees of where the board is sitting. The cable, give me a minute on the cable, because more than a minute, because I'm not this second adapter. I can see the USB adapter, but I don't like that other adapter over there. So let me just make sure that's going to work. And on the final page, you can see that's just a rough drawing of how we'd like to set up the board meetings. We tried to do that this time, but we had Kathy O'Brien and I could not move enough chairs quickly enough. So I apologize, because we tried to do this in a sort of semicircle so that the members could see us a little bit better. But what I'm seeing is that people are leaning in and away from the camera. So we've got to do some work on that, but it's a work in progress, and we're really trying to make it so that members can see our Zoom meetings and understand and hear everything.
Right, and make it look more professional, but especially so they can hear and see, hear us better. So I'd like to make a motion to purchase this equipment, except for maybe we'll wait to see what the cable decision is, but it would be a cost of under $500 for this equipment, and I think that it could serve multiple purposes. We could use it for forums. We could use it for the candidates, meet the candidates forums that we'll have in January. And I think it'll it's a nominal investment for a return on that investment. So I'd like to make a motion that the board approve purchase of this equipment for a cost of under $500.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
The only suggestion I'd make is that you get it on the agenda, and we can legally vote on it. I think we can vote on it
Okay,
now
well-
because the amount is so small, but
I know,
let's try and get it in advance. We can get it
Well,
on the agenda, that would be great.
this was just presented to us the other day.
Sure.
I
No, I
asked
understand.
Donald how I should handle it.
I'm
and
not being
so-
critical, I'm just making a
Yeah,
suggestion.
no, I understand, I understand.
I'm not sure, for this amount, I'm not sure we need board approval. Do we?
Well, we could,
Somebody's got to approve.
Well, it's a very low amount that we would spend.
yeah, it doesn't, the reason I thought it was good for Mrs. Sofranik to present it to the board was just so everybody was aware of what we're going to buy. So that was really more the reason why, because I didn't want it to be like, oh, where'd this come from? You know?
Right.
No,
Well, we
and
do
I'm
have
all
a
for
motion.
it.
Yeah,
Second.
no, I knew you're coming from, yeah.
Now, I hear you.
No,
Last but not least,
Oh,
we
wait,
just, I'm
so,
sorry.
all in favor of this purchase, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Done.
And last but not least, the communication committee would like to have the board revisit initiating forums again after board meetings. I know that we've not been doing that because of CDC requirements and the medical advisory board against groups, but we feel that we could start to at least think about having forums virtually. I'm looking here now, there was a member on that had their hand up before and has since gone off. I think that members certainly would like to have the opportunity to have access to the board and ask questions rather than just on the golf course when they're asking us questions. So I'd like the board to at least, I'm not asking anyone to vote on it, but let's think about it moving forward into the fall. Perhaps we could just have quarterly forums after a board meeting, something like that. But I think given everything that's going on, I think we owe it to our members to have them have access in terms of the forum.
I agree. I think the forums are very desirable, and
Yeah,
I think we should target reinitiating them in the fall.
Especially with the master plan.
Right.
situation.
Yeah, a
Correct.
lot of questions.
Correct.
so maybe, maybe schedule something after the September board meeting. Let's put a date on it and try to do that, or,
Well, I would say,
October.
probably it'd be appropriate to start them again in October.
okay,
After the board meeting in October.
okay.
We sure do them every other month.
That's how we, until COVID, that's how we had it.
Yeah.
It was pretty much October, then January.
Yeah.
Then March, then,
So,
so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why don't we put that back on the agenda, Linda? And so she could notate that, and we'll put it up on the website. And just very quickly, Foxtails,
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
to interrupt, but, the other thing we have now is that our meetings are recorded
yes,
and posted on the website. So, there's an additional
that's
source of
true.
information for members that heretofore was
Actually,
not
that's-
available.
Mhm. So that is true, and this will be posted, today's meeting will be posted to the website later in the day. Health and Wellness is doing their yoga dance. I went to it the other day. It was really nice. It was a beautiful afternoon. They continue to plan the programs for the fall, and they're doing a wonderful job of offering really health conscious opportunities for our members to participate in and gain information on, like hurricane preparedness and things like that. Foxtails, we edited our May-June issue yesterday, and it's off to the printers. Members might want to consider receiving their Foxtails by email or online rather than hard copy. We're always trying to look at costs of everything and trying to stay within budget. So that's something you think you could, you'd be interested in doing. I'd say ask the office to put you on the email list. And that's all that I have.
Okay, we have correspondence from the USGA, which you can read at your leisure. Are there any members who have endured Who wish to
Well,
speak?
we still have 19 members online here, but no one has their hand raised that I can see, so I think maybe they're done with us also.
Well, the next board meeting is May 21st, and is there a motion to adjourn?
Before we get to, let me just say, probably I'll take 15 seconds. I've been to a lot of board meetings. This was, and I'm not an advocate for board meetings, this was the best board meeting I've ever been to here and among all the other boards I've been doing. It was because it was so many people with a common goal, with lots of good ideas, talking about them openly and getting things done. It was just refreshing, and I want to thank everybody for that. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Is there anybody opposed?
Oh, no, let's stay another
Done.
couple hours.
I'm not drinking, I'm right.